Chinese government, the CCWs, are traitors.
Adi, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to. Oh, wow! I got a little delay here in my ear, and it kind of threw me off. Hold on, let me fix that. Let me fix that. But I just want to thank you guys all for subscribing, for liking, for sharing, all the support that I have received from the family so far. It's really been amazing. I thank you guys so much, just from the bottom of my heart. Um, yeah, it's growing so fast. I did not foresee this happening this way. So I am waiting because I want to, start the listening session here, but I'm waiting on President Divine so that he doesn't miss any of what is said. But let's see who we got in the chat so far. We got Alawa Solution. Oh, Finessa. What up, Finessa? We got Finessa in the chat. We got Mississippi Macho in the chat. Let's see. That's who I see in the chat right now. So I thank you guys so much. I see that there are more people here. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you like this t-shirt, you could get it on evenmelanin.com. I just popped my necklace right here on live. Oh, did I did not. I did so. Oh, I'm heard about that. Okay, well, I'll see if I can fix it when I put the video on. All right, so yes, we got Presidential Mike here in the chat. We got First Class Citizen in the chat. You know what I'm saying? I thank you all for being here. All right, we're just gonna get started. Okay, it'll just be me and you then. Oh, there we go. I was about to say, because President Devon's taking his sweet time, but he just popped up. I was just about to pop shit about you. All right, so he's here. All right, so let's get started. We're just gonna just let me know if you can hear it, because I'm not gonna put it on the screen because
Chinese government, the CCP, is using.
Can y'all hear that? See, that's what I didn't want. Can y'all hear? Could you hear it before? Divine.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, I don't know about
All
that.
right.
Birth
If
tourism.
you can hear it, then you can hear it.
Okay,
Man,
cool.
I'm trying to not. Okay, we're gonna have to do it like this.
On an industrial scale. Our federal government has no idea. The notion that somebody can literally drop off their pregnant wife, gives birth here, and as soon as the baby is able to get on a plane, you're flying back to China. You have anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000.
Huh?
You don't even want the picture up?
Well, I did, but it keeps doing what it wants to do. So.
Oh, it'll show some of the video.
Right. It keeps flipping back to the video instead of, so let it just, I don't know. Okay. It's see, you should have just left it.
You can't get it. Okay.
Yeah, just leave it.
Okay.
You see, it's doing what it want to do. That's why. Okay, somebody in the chat said they can hear it too. Okay, I don't know why it's doing it like that. And now it's not even putting you up there.
Take me out and then bring me back. That might help. Nope. There I go.
Okay, maybe I'll just leave it like this. Yeah. Okay, that's the best I can do.
There we go. Oh, you had it.
Yeah, I could do this, but I can't put it with the picture. So.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
We'll go
Chinese nationals a year doing this for 13 years. Not to even mention the issue of surrogacy. They're going to be voting in our elections.
In this episode, I'm sitting down with investigative journalist Peter Schweitzer, the author of multiple New York Times bestsellers, including most recently, The Invisible Coup.
They favor mass immigration. Why? Because they see it as having a transformative effect on American society. It's the way to kind of remake society in the vision that they want.
This is American Thought Leaders, and I'm Yanya Kellick. Peter Schweitzer, so good to have you back on American Thought Leaders.
It's always great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So congratulations on, at the very least, being at the top of Amazon with your new book. That's kind of an unbelievable achievement in itself. I read it through and I discovered so many things that I didn't actually know about. Like, for example, that there's a template of weaponizing migration in 1980, right? The Mariel boat lift in Cuba. Why don't we just start with that? And we're going to jump into all things China, because that's what I'm always most interested in. But there's actually a template for weaponized migration. I didn't know. What is it?
Yeah, it's interesting. We've been having this national conversation about immigration as it relates to things like jobs and crime on our streets. But this issue of weaponized immigration is new in a lot of respects for a lot of people. But we've actually experienced it. And there was a government study that was done probably 20 years ago or so that looked at what were the most successful attacks on the United States. Number one, of course, was 9/11. Number two was Pearl Harbor. Number three was the Mariel boat lift. And the Mariel boat lift was weaponized immigration. And what happened was that there was a growing cry in Cuba for people who wanted to leave Cuba to come to the United States. So Fidel Castro said, we're going to turn this into a weapon. So what they did was seated among people who just wanted freedom in the United States were people from insane asylums that were released with this group, criminals, intelligence officers. So there were 125,000 Cubans that came, but it caused a huge problem with the growth in drug networks, crime in our streets, intelligence and subversion by the Cuban government. And there's a sort of a famous story that I describe in the book based on high-ranking Cuban defectors, where Jimmy Carter, the American president at the time, as this exodus was starting, said, we're going to welcome these people with open arms. And Fidel Castro responded by saying, we're going to fill their arms with excrement. He used a stronger word than that. So this was weaponized immigration. And what's interesting about this government study that looked at 9/11, Pearl Harbor, and the Mariel boat lift as the most successful attacks, what the study said was, Mariel boat lift might have been the best of the attacks by our adversaries because what happened with 9/11? Well, we essentially dismantled Al-Qaeda. We killed them. Pearl Harbor, we defeated the Japanese Empire. But with a Mariel boat lift, when you weaponize immigration, who do you attack? Who do you bomb? Who do you go after on the battlefield?
And it creates this weird mixture because you have a whole bunch of people who are, dissidents from communism who deserve support,
100%.
who are going to be amazing Americans. These are some of the, it's kind of shocking how many of the immigrants are so unbelievably pro-American,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Because we see the other side of that too. But now you have kind of this mix, so it makes it hard, right? It makes it hard to kind of figure out who's who. And it's easy to attack also. Hey, why are you against immigrants?
Yes,
it's
exactly.
like, well, I'm not against immigrants. I'm just against those people.
Yes.
Right.
And the weaponization of immigration. I think what we have to understand is that immigration 50, 100 years ago, it was overwhelmingly people making individual decisions. I want a better life. And they would come here, and the expectation that they had and that fellow Americans had was they were going to assimilate. They want to become part of the American dream. Doesn't mean you forget the homeland, but you embrace those, core American values. What happens with weaponized immigration is it's changed. You have these foreign actors that are manipulating our immigration laws to their benefit. And there's this real pressure that's brought by the Mexican government, by the Chinese government, that once migrants are here, they are attacked and ridiculed because they want to assimilate. I quote in the book a senior ranking Mexican official with the Morena Party saying that Mexicans that come to the United States and embrace American values are traitors. They're traitors to Mexico. And he says that President Sheinbaum agrees with him. So it's a very, very different dynamic. These foreign actors are manipulating immigration in a way that's tragic for our country, it's tragic for a lot of the migrants, and it's beneficial to our enemies.
Just even the concept, right, that assimilation was something that was we had to kind of focus on and make happen, right? I mean, I'm Canadian. Mm-hmm. We escaped communist Poland. My parents did not want to live in a communist society. That was the reason we ended up there, right? And so it was just obvious that we want to leave that part behind, but we want to learn Polish. I learned it. I'm a native speaker, so exactly what you're talking about. But it never occurred to me Until I did a few interviews back in 2019, 2020. The bad things of the culture can be important. And if there isn't an obvious expectation of assimilation, you're going to be importing that thing.
Yes, exactly right.
And it's kind of obvious when you say it, but it wasn't obvious to me, and probably still isn't obvious to a lot of people.
Yeah, and you think when you're coming from a let's say a country that's been torn by war, that has oppression, that has, let's say, some real cultural challenges, you're bringing that with you when you come to the United States. And people don't choose where they're born. We understand that. But the notion that if you come here from a culture that, let's say, has all sorts of issues in terms of the way they treat women, the way that they value or don't value private property and privacy and individual rights, that's going to have huge repercussions. And the problem is compounded by the fact that not only do you have these foreign actors that are fighting against assimilation, you have domestic actors. One of the things I do in the book is quote a lot of progressive activists who talk about the fact that they favor mass immigration. Why? Because they see it as having a transformative effect on American society. It's the way to kind of remake society in the vision that they want, not where America is today or not where even the American people want to go. This is where I want to go as an activist, and I see these migrants as a tool for my political weaponization. And they're quite explicit about it. I mean, that's the thing that's shocking. So I think we need to wake up to that fact. The migration we're dealing with today is weaponized. It's very different than 50 and 100 years ago. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't have immigration. My parents immigrated from Europe. I think it's a wonderful, beautiful thing, but we have to understand what's going on and deal with this weaponization first. And then we can have the broader conversation about the level of legal immigration that we want.
I think that's a great place to pause. So, let's see. We already have a super chat. Thank you so much, Carl Foster. Thank you, Carl Foster. You are a constant supporter to all of us in the Black grassroots, and I appreciate you. Okay, so President Devine, what do you think about what you heard so far?
So I think one of the most profound things that I heard is actually was pointed out in the chat by Black Panther Strike, right? Because he mentions, oh yeah, that immigration is being weaponized now, and I think it's important.
So
for
right
us
now, probably the last.
Sorry, go ahead.
As foundational Black Americans, that immigration has always been weaponized against us. It's not now. It's just now. It's almost like that Eminem song, right? That Eminem lyric. Now it's a tragedy. Now it's so sad to see an upper class city having this happening, right? So now it's weaponized because it's starting to affect the white folks, right? Because at every turn, immigration has benefited the white folks, even if it was just to mean that they got a chance to bolster their quote unquote white numbers, right? Prior to that interview that now, everyone is, and this is pretty much, I think, if I'm not mistaken, since it's gone up, I think this is our first time getting back on live or on a stream since we went and did that interview with the Daily Wrap-Up crew, right? So, and which is crazy, right? But prior to that appearance with the Daily Wrap-Up crew, I was reading and finishing up the Emancipation Reclamation, which is a free, essentially like a free magazine from Numbers USA that details our.
Hold on, you broke up a little bit. It's a free what now?
Oh, it's a free newsletter from that Numbers USA helps to dispense and disperse onto not only but mainly HBCU campuses, right? Because immigration is one of those topics that has become taboo, and you've been labeled xenophobic as soon as you bring it up if you're not totally in favor of it. And so they've been using it as a cudgel against us to stop us from having the conversations that our ancestors, that our foundational Black American icons have always had and analyze, because they have seen that, just like most things in this country, immigration is another tool that white supremacy uses against us specifically. So when he says, now it's weaponized, that's just something that just stuck out to me, because they don't ever see it until it starts happening and hurting them. And so while it was hurting us, it was just immigration. Now that it's hurting them, it's weaponized immigration when it's always been weaponized against us.
One thing that I find very interesting is that when I read The Invisible Coup, the rank and file population, including the children of immigrants, have never really been that open to immigration. Even back in the day, they were against it. They were saying that, that basically brought down the neighborhood because their cleanliness practices were not the same as the ones who had been here for quite some time. Their promiscuity wasn't the same as it was, to the ones who had been here for quite some time. So even the regular citizens, everyday citizens of the United States, the children of immigrants, even they did not want mass immigration. It has always been either the corporate structure. I don't even want to say corporate structure, because at that time it wasn't really corporate structure, but I would say like factory, you know what I mean? The big business structure that wanted them. It was the politicians as a result of big business, because big business always paid for the politicians. They were the ones who wanted mass immigration, because they've always, tried to pay people less and give people less. And as you become citizens in this country and you become aware of the laws, you realize, you don't have to work in unhealthy conditions. You don't have to work for wages that are slave wages or close to slave wages. You don't have to do these things. And so that is the reason why they've always brought in an immigrant a newly immigrant population to usurp the people that have been here. And that's, Black folks and mainly Black folks, because we were always here. But as a result, some of the white folks as well, the children of immigrants that were, like second and third gen by that time, or even just had been here for a little while, right? So immigration has never been, mass immigration has never been something that the citizens of the United States ever wanted. And I don't think a lot of people realize that that this conversation is not new. This is a conversation that has been going on in this country for hundreds and hundreds of years. Yeah. And you've said this before, that how immigration hurts the native born population or the citizens of that country is well understood in other countries. Because right now I just finished watching, protests that Mexicans are doing, talking about leave gringos. You know what I'm saying? They want the gringos to leave because they're saying that they're bringing in gentrification. They are bringing in they're rising, the price of rent is rising. All of these things are happening as a result, and how the white folks that are the gringos that are coming in refuse to even be labeled as immigrants. They want to be called expats. And I find that to be very, very interesting, as we're sitting here watching that. We have the Bahamas. Our big sis Kiesha talks about this all the time, about, how they are reacting towards the Haitians. And, they're saying that, the Haitians are coming over. They're not necessarily making the price of things go up, but they're having a negative effect, where they are, just trying to demand laws and demand things in a country that is not theirs. And so, like I said, there's this concept of immigration being used as exploitation towards the citizens is not a new concept, and it's not even unique to the United States. So anything else to add before I keep going?
Yeah, I want to actually expound on that just a little bit because
Sure.
it brings to my mind and we've been kind of talking about this because you got the tether class, you got the Pan-Africanists, you got the Democrat shills, all complaining about this current delineation movement, and they're pretending like this is something that just came up since the since prior to 2020, right? Like 2019, 2018. And it brings to my mind Dr. Claude Anderson, before we even get down to the icons of the past, like A. Philip Randolph, which we're going to touch on, or at least I'm going to touch on, before this stream is said and done. When you talk about Dr. Claude Anderson and his designation of Native Black Americans, most people got that term incorrect, right? We understand that there's definitely some, indigenous, I was going to say indigeneity, but it couldn't come out, but indigenous ancestry with with some of our families here. But that Native Black American moniker always meant the native population here, right? And not native in the way in which you think about Native American, right? Because everywhere has a native population. And so when he was talking about the Native Black Americans, that's who he's talking about. Those of us who are the native population of the United States of America. And what has happened is because of the dynamics of this country, alongside the religion of Pan-Africanism, that has convinced all these other groups, especially the Afro-immigrant groups, that this country does not belong to us, then we can't be a native population complaining about the same things that every native population complains about when it comes to immigration, right? Even during COVID, where you had the Mexicans in Mexico City complaining about the white Americans that were taking their remote money, remote job, those that were working from home, those remote jobs, and they were, because they could do them anywhere at that time, they were taking trips to Mexico City because it was so cheap, especially those from California and surrounding states. And they were complaining then that was changing the culture of Mexico City, in addition to driving up prices because you now have American influx of American money coming into the market, changing the supply and demand dynamics. You have the Hawaiians that complain about how tourism and people moving there changed their native culture, right? And so it's only when foundational Black Americans have the same logical conversations, and sorry about that noise, I'm gonna try to mute that out. These same conversations that affect us like they do every other native population, is when you get the bad faith arguments and the deflections and the whataboutisms to kind of squash out our valid claims of what immigration does. Because again, especially when we're talking about I'm trying to say how to say this, but when we talk about low skilled immigration, right? When we reference low skilled immigration, those immigrants are largely coming into our neighborhoods. They're not going into the neighborhoods. So all of those things need to be taken into account in this conversation. And like I said, largely a lot of those conversations have been we've been gaslit and respectably politicked, if that's a term, out of having those conversations that are 100% absolutely necessary to have.
And so I just wanted to address something. Someone said in the chat that pay attention to the words that they're using, because when they're talking about foreign or domestic foes, they're talking about us. When they're talking about domestic, that in this particular conversation, that is not the case. In this particular conversation, a coup happens from inside the house. Okay, I was going to say some words, but you can't say them on YouTube. The threat it's coming from inside the house. And so in this particular conversation, they are talking about people like AOC. That's a prime example of a domestic problem. I don't want to say the T word, a domestic problem. She is constantly advocating for non-citizens. Oh, we could talk about Member Salages, okay? Because I love talking about her stinking ass. Member Salages here in New York, the Haitian American assembly member. She is constantly advocating for non-citizens and not advocating for the actual constituents that voted for her. These are the domestic threats that we're talking about in this particular conversation. Now, in other conversations that might be true, but in this particular conversation, he is talking specifically about immigration and as a whole. And for all of the Afro immigrants that have been in my comments very, very upset because of the Daily Wrap-Up interview that I did, the celebration of Marcus Garvey's birthday that I did, understand that you center yourselves in this immigration conversation, because as we go through, we're not going to talk about Afro immigrants at all. We're going to talk about everybody but you, but we're still going to talk about how immigration hurts us as a whole. Okay, and so let's continue.
You want to be seeing is a pitch from Jan, but I want to encourage you to subscribe to the Epoch Times. It is how we keep the lights on.
Oh, I didn't really want that, but
interviews coming.
I
Just
don't
hit
know
the link
how to
below and
fast
subscribe
forward,
to the Epoch
but-
Times.
Okay.
And it's just the thing that really struck me reading.
Oh, but now it won't do it. Hold on, let me see.
Is that there's so many different players for whom this is a kind of a success,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you have people that are, there's people that are looking to have increase the voting block, for example. They believe that's going to work for them. Seems to be one of the efforts. Another one is just people who want to destabilize, right? This is going back to the Mayor boat lift. You think about this Cloward-Piven strategy type
Yes.
approach where, you want to kind of like blow out the economy so you can transform it into a more socialist economy. That's nuts, but there's people like working on that too, apparently, right?
100%.
And then there's people, for example, and the whole Mexican example is fascinating, right? This idea that there's this manifest destiny, we need to reconquer the South, and this we can just do it. Even if there's a border, we can have it, right? I mean, that's the kind of stuff you describe in there. It's kind of, so there's all these different actors, and it almost seems like there's a lot fewer up until recently that were like, hey, wait a sec, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. And what's funny about it is, not funny, I mean, it's helpful in a way, but all the things that when you look at the motivations of these foreign actors, they're open about it. So, when it comes to Mexico, this notion that Mexico views mass migration as a way of extending their sovereignty into the United States to reclaim portions of the American Southwest that they lost in the 19th century, they're actually openly saying it. I mean, these are senior government officials from various political parties that say this. Whether they actually mean that California will become a Mexican state is really not the point. The point is they believe that they are reaching critical mass in states and they're going to be able to exert a level of sovereignty in those states. And they're already kind of doing it. You have this bizarre situation where in the Mexican Senate and in the Mexican Chamber of Deputies, which is their Congress, you have representatives that live in the United States, and their job is to represent Mexican Americans that live in the United States before the Mexican government. That's a massive intrusion in our sovereignty. So you have a Mexican senator.
Oh, we got to pause. We got to pause because he said a lot. They said a lot. And that just a few minutes, right? One of the things they said was they want to, increase the voting block. We already see, I wish I had that video available, but we're going to break that one down too. But we see that in Detroit, that it has been proven. This is a proven fact now. This is not a theory. This is a proven fact. In Detroit, a man had a theory. He started with a theory. The theory was that the Democrats were stealing people's votes. And this is why I say the strategy of sitting on the couch during the election, it served us well during Kamala's run. But now we have to start a different strategy. And the reason why is because of this. So in Detroit, he had a theory that the Democrats were stealing people's votes, the votes of people who sat on the couch, right? Because you're not aware of what's happening. You're just ignoring it, right? And so he looked on the Democrat voter rolls, like who voted for the Democrats. And he found a friend of his, somebody he actually knew personally. And he called him up. And this friend had moved away from this particular district. So he called his friend. It was like, did you put in an absentee ballot for such and such? And the friend was like, no, I don't vote. You know that. Like, you know what I mean? And so the Democrats are stealing votes. This is, like I said, this is a proven fact at this point. So that is one way that they're doing it. Another way is that they are gathering homeless people and paying them, to register to vote at erroneous addresses, and then going and picking up the delivery of ballots and then filling them out. They also going to senior citizen homes and taking their absentee mail-in ballots. And so this is what he means. And not to mention the fact that, like Yvette Clarke said, if you remove all of the illegals from the census, she would lose her seat because of redistricting, because of how many people are being counted on the census. So those are was that 3? Did I just give out 3 ways? Detroit, homeless. No, that was 4. Homeless, the old folks homes, and what was the last one I just said? Redistricting. So those are 4 different ways how the Democrats are using illegals to bolster, or stealing votes, I should say, because some of them was homeless people and stuff like that. So I would say are stealing votes. So we know that this is happening. So, and then I'll add a 5th one on that. We also know, we saw a video on Thorough Black Talk with my big sis Kiesha and OG Tad. We also saw in Thorough Black Talk how the Democrats are allowing, and this would happen here in New York, they are allowing illegals to vote. And then they're not accepting voter ID when you go to vote. So these are different ways that the Democrats are using to steal votes. So that's why I say, even if you go in this election season and you write in your own people, like you Superman, I don't know, write in your own people, but participate in the process somehow so that they cannot steal your vote. Because even if you in New York, personally, I'm going to say this personally, I feel like, I stand with my big sis Kiesha in the fact that we just need to vote Republican down ticket, just because we got to have some FU votes for the Democrats here, because they think they run everything and they need a wake-up call, and it needs to be shaken up here in New York. And so, but that's my personal opinion. I'm not telling everybody to go and do that. You do what you like, except for Nikki Lucas's district. Please vote for Nikki Lucas. I don't think she's up for re-election this term, but always vote for Nikki Lucas. But aside from her, everybody else is like, we need to let them know that, because they got the cojones to tell people like President Devine that Republicans don't run nothing here but they mouths, and that they run the show. And so since you run the show, we need to start changing and switching things up a bit here in New York. So that's my personal opinion. He also talked about that people want to blow the economy to make this a socialist country. That is Mondami. Mondami is doing everything. AOC, they are doing everything in their power to blow the New York economy, and Eric Adams before them, until Eric Adams realized that nobody was going to give him no money and nobody was going to pat him on his ugly ass bald head. And so, you know, they are definite. Nikki Lucas is our champion assembly person who is the co-writer of our bills here in New York. Somebody asked who Nikki Lucas is. She is an assemblywoman in East New York, Brooklyn. Right. So that is Nikki Lucas. Yes. Thank you, President Devon. You are already on it. Mm-hmm. And so he said from District 60 in Brooklyn. So so they want to blow the economy and make this a socialist country. And then we see that that's exactly what Mondami's trying to do. That's exactly what the mayor of Chicago is trying to do. That's exactly what the governor of California is trying to do. Like, you can see that in various Democratic cities where they are, whether they claim to be a Democratic socialist or not, because Mondami is just honest. I don't think Gavin Newsom claims to be a Democratic socialist, but he sure is running the state like he want to be. So this is what we mean when he says, you know, people are trying to blow the economy. Then we got the other thing he talked about. It's the fact that, this was wild to me, because the other things I kind of knew already, but this one was interesting and I had never heard of this. The Mexicans feel like they want to be reconquistadors, reconquistadize. California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and other states. I can't remember all the other ones, but they want to recolonize those states for Mexico. And he's not saying this. I'm saying this part. What they're trying to do, is to get enough voters where they can affect a change that will be pro-Mexico, right? And I'm going to take it a step further, and this is me. This is not him talking. This is me talking. I'm going to take a step further and say, if they get enough voters in those states, they could secede from the union.
Oh my God.
They could vote to secede. I mean, look, if you fill the state with enough voters, you can look how Staten Island keep trying to secede. They keep trying. So I feel like this is like their end tactic. Like, they're trying to gather enough people in these places where they can retake or reconquista, retake these states from America, right? That is their goal, because they feel that they have to put almost like immediate this is why they are trying to change the languages so everything speaks Spanish. They are trying to change things to where it's more like Mexico light, or a second, or a Mexico annex. That way, because they feel that the Mexicans that have moved here, i.e. like the I don't know what the Chicanos, right? They are not Mexican anymore. They fall more under the American, and we see that as them, a lot of them, when they're here for quite some time, they no longer vote Democrat, they start voting Republican. So that is an outward expression of them changing their beliefs as a part of assimilation. So they want to keep Texaco, California, blah, 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 all those states as Mexican as possible, so that the people the Mexicans that move here retain this sense of wanting to push Mexico forward ahead of the United States. Okay, so I said a lot. President Devon, you got any thoughts?
Lord. So that's how with her tinfoil bonnet on, like that. I don't know what she's talking about with all that. That is,
read the book. Did you read the book?
I did not read the book, so but I'm gonna say that is, like I said, I'll say this. is not outside of the realm of possibility. Anything is possible.
Of what they want. I'm not saying they're gonna succeed. I'm saying that's what they want to do.
Nah, not even a one. And I'm gonna tell you why. So
Okay.
it's not even. Is it possible? Yes. Not most things. There's a lot of things that's possible. Is it probable? No.
I'm not saying it's probable.
Do they want control in those states? Yeah, I will agree with you on that. Seceding or trying to make it, no. That's just a talking point to help them facilitate illegal immigration. It's the whole nobody's illegal on stolen land talking point. If y'all have ever heard that, it's mostly from the Democrat socialists, right? And the people that want open borders. So that's the reason why they talk about this and talk about, oh, that was originally our land and all this other bullshit that has no real roots in reality or actual history. What I will say is this is what I believe that they want and that they are doing. And it kind of goes back to another book that I actually did read, written by Charles Blow. And yes, I know Charles Blow, and that name is wild, especially when you start talking about his personal preferences, but we're not going to go there. But he wrote a book called The Devil You Know. And in that book, he advocates for what a number of people advocate for, even in this reparations space, reverse migration back to the South, right? And even Jamal Bowman, which I thought was a travesty and just disrespectful, talked about this on The Breakfast Club.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about, if Foundation Black Americans want real power, they will leave New York and go back to the South where they got the numbers, even though we voted just scraggly ass in there to be the power we needed in New York to help us get what we need here. But needless to say, what I'm brought that up because in that book and in this concept and this strategy, and it's based largely on a strategy that has kept Bernie Sanders in office for as long as he's been in there, even though it looked like he needed to retire and or he be on his last days and last legs. Because
last breaths.
Right, yeah. The hippies moved to Vermont en masse. And they essentially took over the local politics of Vermont with their sheer numbers. And that class of people, regardless of how successful or unsuccessful Bernie Sanders has been as a senator and also as a presidential candidate, he still gets elected over and over and over again because those hippies that are his base control the local politics of that area. And so in this book by Charles Blow and this Back South strategy, that's essentially the thought process. If foundational Black Americans can move to areas where we are the numerical majority, then we can take over those local politics as well. And then we have state senators that are willing to do our bidding in those states. At least that's the theory, right? And I'm not saying it's a bad theory. I'm just saying it's a theory. But that is what I think is happening in these states that Sister Brooke talked about going to secede. I think that's what they're doing.
I didn't say they were going to succeed.
Yeah. So what they want to do is they want to build up Hispanic power in those states because they don't want to take those states back to Mexico. They just want a Mexican presence in American states. They already see what it looks like when Mexicans are running a country. They don't want that. That's why they're here. They want to see Mexicans in power in a country ran by this government because it gives them all the latitude and the power and the rights, obviously, that we fought for largely, that they don't have in Mexico. And so if they can get enough of their numbers up in those states, then they can get Mexican politicians, Mexican representatives, and now you have Mexicans in Congress that can do exactly what Joe Manchin or Tammy Duckworth did when Biden was in office, and they was like, look, you want your agenda to be passed? Here's what we need for our area. And where Tammy Duckworth was like, here's what I need for my people, my AAPI in our community. And they were able to leverage their position, their votes in the Congress during that time to get the set-asides from this government that they needed. And I think that's what they're looking to do in those areas, not necessarily use their powers to vote and then secede. like Sister Brooks said with her tinfoil bonnet on?
They are saying they want these states back. Specifically, they are saying they want it to be removed. I'm not saying that what you're saying is not true, as far as it doesn't make any sense, because they already have. I'm saying what they're saying. They're saying they want it back, that it belongs to them. It should not be a part of the United States, and that they want it back. That is what they are saying. This is what they're saying. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm saying that, you know what I mean? I think that they're trying to, you know what I'm saying, that's what they would like to do. I don't think they're going to actually accomplish it, because, you know, we're just not going to let that happen.
I'm with Child of God. Read Child of God's comment. That's what we saying. Read that comment.
Right. They want access to the U.S. Treasury. I'm not arguing with that. I'm just telling you what they are saying.
Yeah, they want control. They want control of a U.S. state. They don't want it belongs
to them, and they want it back. That's what they're saying.
And what me and Child of God is saying, want it back means, yeah, it's our state. We run and control it, but it's still under the jurisdiction of the United States of America. That's it. Because if it's under jurisdiction of Mexico, then they could have just took their scraggly ass back to Mexico, and they don't want to be in Mexico.
I hear you.
Okay. All right. That's what I'm
saying. But like I said, let's keep going, because like I said, I know what they're saying. I read the book. I know what they're saying.
I'm not saying they're not saying that. I'm just saying what they're saying doesn't mean secede or take it back to Mexico. What they're saying is, yeah, I want a little Mexico like they got little Chinatowns. Chinatown ain't saying let me take it back to China. They're saying let me have a Chinatown here in America that operates under American rules so I can get all American benefits.
However, we need to get them up out of here so that they can't accomplish any of these things.
That's what I'm saying.
All right. So how about that? Because whether they can vote to secede or they can vote to take control, whatever, we don't need them doing any of that. But I do believe that they're trying to do both.
Okay.
So let's keep going. Let's see now.
Who lives in...
Oh, Lord. I forgot.
Representing Mexican Americans in Arizona, who is in the Mexican Senate introducing legislation, voting on bills.
Why?
Oh, you just want to hear
how to help I'm trying to... Mexican Americans in the country. And they talk about the fact that the Mexican diaspora in the United States is a quote unquote strategic resource that can be used for the benefit of the Mexican government. I mean, it's to me, it's shocking.
Well, and then just all these, an order of magnitude more consulates than even the Chinese have. The Chinese Communist Party has these police stations which act like these little outposts. But here you have 50 plus overt actual consulates. I mean, that's beyond, I think, well beyond any other country. Right?
Yes, if I remember correctly, China and the UK, I think, have 6 or 7 consulates in the United States. Mexico has 53. And one of the things you discover is that these consulates, in addition to doing their sort of regular consular behavior, there's also a lot of evidence they're getting involved in American domestic politics, meaning, supporting certain candidates, certain political parties. There was a meeting in May of 2024. We got a copy of the transcript of the meeting at the Mexican consulate in Oklahoma City, of all places. And they brought together consular officials from around the country. There were Democratic Party activists there. And the discussion was about how, with the upcoming presidential election, how they were going to turn parts of the country from red to blue. And they talked about how they had done it in California, they'd done it in Arizona, and now how are we going to do it in the rest of the country? That is not the kind of conversation foreign diplomats are supposed to be having in the United States. At the same time, they're championing and supporting these violent protests, the ones we had in Los Angeles in 2025, the ones that we're having in Minneapolis in January of 2026. Consular officials are encouraging this behavior. One of the Mexican officials living in the United States said that he was organizing the militancy and going around the country meeting with activist groups to try to ramp things up. So again, this is not stuff that foreign diplomats are supposed to be doing.
And I mean, And Mexico is an ally, right?
Supposedly.
I mean, well, no, but I mean, compared to the
I keep trying to put the book
yes.
back
it
up there.
actually is.
Yes.
So this is why, this all kind of taking me for a spin here. I mean, this can actually be negotiated potentially, right? There's negotiation is possible here.
Yes.
And the other, on the Chinese Communist Party, that's a bit of a different discussion.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, it is. No, you're right about that. I mean, Mexico, we do not view as an adversarial power the way that we rightfully view China as an enemy. And I think our tendency is, and this benefits Mexico and what they're doing, our tendency is to view the Mexican government as corrupt, maybe a little hapless. And I don't think that's really a accurate rendering. I mean, they actually do talk and they are engaged in activities in our country that I would argue are quite sophisticated and quite brazen.
Sounds strategic is the term I was thinking.
Yes, yes. And again, it's something that it's not just sort of one, crazy politician popping off on. There are literally dozens of quotations in the book, and they're very explicit. And they see states like Arizona and California as examples of success. So we need to be aware when we're dealing with issues of mass migration and the Mexican border. We need to understand the way they view it. They do not view mass migration as a bad thing. They are not saddened by the fact that tens of millions of Mexicans have moved to the United States. They view it as a positive thing, not only because of the billions of dollars they get in remittances, but also because of this strategic sense that they have, that California, Nevada, these states, the American Southwest, it's their land. They view it as their land, and this is an opportunity to reoccupy it and to use it in a manner that benefits what they call Greater Mexico.
So now, during what's been dubbed the surge, right, in the previous administration,
as I said, that's what I'm saying. I think we're both right. They view it as their land.
I didn't never.
They want it back.
What they said, they wanted to benefit their country. That don't mean go to that. That don't mean to go to their country, because he's also talked about remittances. But I want to say shout out. I can't remember. I don't know who it was, but shout out to the person that just taught me a new word, a new concept. It's called irredentism. And that's essentially what we were talking about without knowing it. So that's when a foreign country, well, it was more towards talking to what you were saying would happen. So less secession and more Mexico staking the claim that is really our land and using
Eric Nixon.
Yeah. And shout out to you. And right. So what happens is that foreign government, which is Mexico, makes the claim that
wait, you broke up really a little bit. You broke up a little bit. Say that again.
I said so it'll be the foreign government, which is Mexico in this example, stating that that land is really ours, and then using the people that are in those areas to also kind of chant that same song. But in that scenario, leaning more towards your tinfoil bonnet scenario, then if they control the local politics, then they can start passing laws and different policies and different things to encourage that type of action, where the Mexican government comes in and says, yeah, we should do this. And then you got local politicians in the area that says, yeah, we should do that too. And then, it can get essentially annexed in that scenario. So less secession, more irredentism.
Okay, then I can agree with that then. So maybe secede was a little too strong of a word. But
it's just a different concept. Secession means that those states now stand alone and become their own nation. That's why I was like,
okay, so then that's not what I mean. So irredentism would be the better term for that. So they not trying to be their own nation. They trying to make it part of Mexico. Anyway, okay, so let's keep going because we got a little bit to go. But thank you, Eric Nixon. We appreciate you teaching us a new word.
Each one teach one.
I'm still learning, says in the famous words of Neely Fuller.
Administration, all these people coming through. There was large, sizable number of Chinese nationals. There were military-aged males that were described. You don't focus on that aspect of the weaponized migration from the CCP's side, from the Chinese Communist Party side. But how serious of an issue is that? Was there a kind of a fifth column pushed into America through that?
God dang, it just won't let me do it.
I think so, and I mean you've done some reporting on this as other people have, and I think it's true when you realize that a lot of the criminal networks that operate in the United States, Chinese organized crime, these individuals would come and connect up with them. We know in the state of Maine, for example, you've covered this with all the illegal marijuana growths. When they go and find out who's running these operations, they're people that are illegally in the country, some of whom came through the border in Mexico. So are there individuals there that are escaping communism and want to be part of the American system? Yeah, there are. The problem is, as with the example of the Mariel boat lift, you don't really know who is who. And a lot of these individuals are coming into the United States. They're connected with the CCP. They're connected with Chinese organized crime. And this is, in part, an effort of infiltration. And the fact that you have some people fleeing communism coming across that border is perfect cover. Exactly the same methodology that Fidel Castro used in the Mariel boat lift.
I'm still blown away that I just simply, well, it's not just me. I mean, I'm Canadian. Maybe I can be forgiven a little bit for not being aware, right? But I mean, to me, it was revelatory that all this could be weaponized when I started having guests who were saying, look, Jan, this is not normal. This is not organic. And of course, after a while, it becomes obvious. But it's not like we didn't know that this method exists and has been done, and apparently done wildly effectively before. This is confusing. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been done well before. And if you look...
Pause. Sorry. This is just I need to I need to do a shout out real quick. I got Uncle Reggie in my chat. What? Oh my goodness. So y'all hear me talk about the family in North Carolina that has acres and tiny homes and all that kind of stuff a lot. Uncle Reggie is a part of that family. Yo, Uncle Reggie, thank you so much for being a part of my chat. You know how much I love you and your family and your son and your brothers and nephews. I so enjoy that. Is the content that I watch when I want to relax and I want to take a break from learning as far as about Black history, and I want to learn something about cultivating the land and living in a tiny home and chickens and and camping and everything like that. So I just I'm excited to see Uncle Reggie in my chat, and I just had to give him a quick shout out because he always gives me a shout out when I be in his chat, which I am in quite often. So y'all go follow Uncle Reggie and Stan Wilkins and Uncle Rick. I think his name is Big Rick on YouTube. Follow all of them. And yeah, so let's get back to it. And thank you guys for the super chats. Thank you, Church of Black Power. You know what I'm saying? Love you always. Little Sunny, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Let's see. Do I have another one? Yeah, Little Sunny. Oh, twice from Little Sunny. We appreciate you. All right, so let's get back.
Further in history, which I'm not as familiar with, but you look further in history on migration. Migration has oftentimes been used as a weapon of subversion, a weapon to overwhelm an enemy, a weapon to divide an enemy, a weapon to sow chaos. I quote in the book an immigration judge in the United States who says, look, I mean, the exception to the rule is sort of free immigration where people just sort of organically, that by and large, this is enacted by states. And so in the case of the surge from Mexico in the Biden administration, you had two explicit things that happened because we went from a trickle to a flood almost overnight. The first thing is, as I recount in the book, after Joe Biden won in November 2024, AMLO, the president of Mexico, called together Mexican legislators and they enacted legislation that they knew was going to radically encourage mass migration to the United States. So they knew that that was the effect because that's what they wanted to happen. You had governments in Nicaragua, Daniel Ortega, and you think, well, what could they do in Nicaragua? They decided, hey, we will allow anybody from anywhere on the planet. If they fly to Nicaragua, we will give them a visa and we will take them to the border so they can head north and go into the United States. And you literally had millions of people coming from Africa, from Latin America, from Asia, who flew to Nicaragua on these chartered planes and then would head north. So this was all intentional and directed.
And this is so, I mean, the really important.
Man, that's a lot right there. President Divine, you got any thoughts about what you've heard?
No, I think that was not really. No, I do got some stuff that I don't want to shoehorn it into this. So no, I'm just it's illuminating, right? Like it's just really showing you the depth of how diabolical like this system really is, right? Like and how it uses every single thing. It's like the Matrix, right? It's just like the Matrix. If something or somebody is not unplugged, the agents can and will use it against you when you're trying to get unplugged. And so the one thing though that I love about stuff like this, and I say this often, and I always tease you with it because the same way I'm talking about your tinfoil bonnet, you always are the conspiracy theorist. And what's interesting is that for us, conspiracy theory has always been something we just didn't get a chance to prove yet. Because most things that have been viewed as conspiracy theories for us have always come out to be true when we thought it was something that was happening. And so, just, allowing them to lay out what's been going on, it just lets us know that we weren't crazy when it comes to immigration. But it also shows how far this country will go to cut off his nose, right? To spite his face. So yeah, I'll leave that there for now.
My computer is doing wild things right now. Like you have no idea. I don't even know what's going on. It just started shaking like this. Okay. Let me see. I'm trying to get it back, but it is not working, y'all. So yeah, I would like to have it where the book is at least there while we're listening to it, but it is not trying to let me do that no more.
This mix.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It ain't happening.
And you think it'll trigger it if you have it up, the actual thing playing?
Some of whom are just
What thing
economic
plan?
This.
Some of whom are actual bad actors. And some of
I
them
feel
who are
like it,
criminals
and I don't
insane
want
people
to
that are
run the
being
risk.
pushed to destabilize.
Yes.
And you have to it's obviously very difficult to sort out, especially when
The
there's
book is
this
here.
kind of mass surge happening.
Exactly right. I mean, that's the dilemma when you have a country like the United States that immigrants helped to build. I mean, they were a vital component to it. Helped build it. So important to our history, and we are a compassionate people in a lot of respects. But now that compassion is being turned against us, and it's being used to manipulate us. And the cost is real, especially when you have domestic people in the United States, some of these NGOs, who are telling migrants that come here from whatever intention, don't assimilate. And in fact, they pressure them and ridicule them if they do talk about assimilating. It creates a lot of tension and conflict in the United States that we don't need. And it is destabilizing, which is the intention of what is happening. So the challenge for America is, how do we maintain this important part of our history of allowing immigration, but vetting who is coming into the country? And that's not an easy thing to solve, but it begins with awareness. Let's begin with awareness of the fact that it is being weaponized, this is going on, and we have got to address it before it's too late.
Well, you do have a chapter at the end of the book that tries to do that. And I mean, as I was looking through that, some of it is around shifting the incentive structures of people coming here. So, a big part of what you talk about when it comes to the CCP's weaponization of migration is this birth tourism. Yes. So, fascinating, shocking, and deeply disturbing examples. But
okay, before we get into birth tourism, so he talked about the fact that that all of remember the caravans that we were seeing of all these people traveling through other countries in Central and South America to get here, how they were funded by NGOs. And these would like President Devine was saying, like, we thought when we were saying these things, people were treating us like we were saying a whole bunch of conspiracy theories. You know what I'm saying? We kept saying, who's paying for this? How is this happening? And now we see that it was NGOs, it was different organizations that have an attempt to try to thwart the government that we have in place already. And so, we knew that this wasn't something organic, that this wasn't something just happening, even when the Democrats were just trying to tell us, no, all these people just need a better life. They're just here for a better life, And Nick Shirley, I remember an interview that he did with somebody, I think they were here in New York, and the lady was talking about, how their lives were currently, she had, come across the border, and she was talking about how her life was currently in danger because she owed the coyotes money. And that, I'm saying, they had already taken her husband, and she was trying to figure out a way to get this money to get to them. So it's like, not only are they putting the country at risk, but they're putting the very people at risk that they keep saying that they're trying to help. So it's just a negative all the way around. And then let's talk about that Mexican small hat president. I don't understand Mexico. How is your president a small hat? How does that work? How does that work? Like, you know what I'm saying? Everybody wants to talk about it. Oh, because she's the first woman president, or she's a woman president, or whatever. I'm not sure if she's the first. So I don't quote me on that, but I think she is. Everybody want to talk about the fact that she's a woman. She's a small hat. I'm very curious as to how in the world that works. But we all know that when people were running and fleeing, they were going all over the place. So, but she is okay with these cartels, and that's obvious because they pew-pewed anybody who ran against her. Y'all don't remember that? Other people were running up against her, and man, they shot that man in the face in front of everybody, like he was going into a car, leaving a speaking engagement or whatever, right in the face. And so everybody got taken out and picked off except for her. So clearly she's working with these, you know what I'm saying? So of course she don't have no problem with the cartels and all that kind of stuff because she's with them. So, it's just, and somebody said it's insane. Justin Lavelle said it is insane. It absolutely is insane that we have people that like it's like you want us to be run how Mexico is being run, like a cartel, where the cartel makes all the decisions and all the whatchamacallits, and the people have no say, no nothing. And that's not going to happen here. We're not going to allow it to happen here. And so so I just wanted to, and then we see like now we see that like there are people that came through that way, other groups that came through that way. They got a baby from this country, they got a baby from that country, because they, everywhere they went, they had a baby to try to secure some sort of citizenship as they were traveling through, so it's wild. And it just has to stop. And someone called it treason. It absolutely 100% is treason. And I don't know if we will ever see the day where these people will be prosecuted, because you know how white supremacy is. They don't really like, they might shame you for doing, wrong things. But when the South seceded from nobody went to jail for treason. So, which I think declaring war on the country is treason. I don't think anything else closer can come as close to treason as I declaring war on your country. But like I said, not only were they not prosecuted, but they were given their land back, when they were supposed to forfeit said land. So, this country does not really do a whole lot of punishing white folks that commit treason against the country. So I doubt we'll ever see that. But, we do have to at least stop it. You know what I mean? Even if we can't, if they decide not to do anything else. Anything you want to add, President Divine, as we get into birthright citizenship and tourism?
No, I think that's one of the things that you said was so important for people to understand. So I'll say it again. During that time, right? Like, so realistically, and I've heard this said before, so it's not like I'm making this up or breaking the ground, but the United States of America is what it looks like if Germany allowed the former Nazis to stay in positions of power. And so there was much debate around what to do with those former Confederates, those treasonous dissenters, and because of whiteness, and this is just how tragic white supremacy is against itself, right? Because that's roughly, I mean, not roughly, but that's largely what a lot of the debates and conflicts are now when you think about what's going on amongst white folks, right? It's still those same descendants of the former Confederates going up against those same descendants of the former Union members, right? Like, it's just same battles, different topics. And it's like, but if you never allowed them to get back into power or even get back into polite society or civil society, we could have a different country. But you understood that you needed to unite with those white folks to keep us out of power and keep us at bay. And that's largely what all those quote unquote compromises that they made with one another was about. Ensuring that at least, even if it's one of my enemies, it'll still be a white person. Instead of having quote unquote Negro rule, which we understand was one of the things that they couldn't stand the most and couldn't, wrap their heads around. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. Let's keep going. Let me see. I'm working on something.
Here's the Rob, right? You suggest, I think, that it could be there's 1 million American citizens, 500,000 to 1 million American citizens who have their allegiance to the Chinese Communist Party. Could be.
Yes.
And how do you get that number? I mean, that's a really large number of people.
I agree, it's a really large number of people, and I was shocked by it. Issue to me is
I keep trying.
Really central because it is a massive vulnerability and it's something that can be fixed. We'll see what the Supreme Court is going to settle on this, but the important thing I think for people to understand is the Chinese government, the CCP, is using birth tourism on an industrial scale. They are exploiting it on an industrial scale. So what do I mean? Well, any numbers that we have related to how many Chinese nationals are flying to the United States, giving birth here, and then flying home with the baby, raising them in communist China, and then when they turn 18, they're going to be citizens, they can vote and do everything. Our federal government has no idea. We don't track this information because you're given a birth certificate when your child is born here, whether you're an American citizen, whether you're a Chinese birth tourist, you get a birth certificate, does not list the nationality of the parents. Nobody tracks this. So our federal government says we have no idea. The number of 500,000 to 1 million, maybe more, comes actually from China. The Chinese government has looked at this and estimates. The Chinese government and some research firms say that over the past roughly 13 years, you have anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000 Chinese nationals a year doing this for 13 years. which is stunning. And there's a lot of anecdotal evidence to support this in addition to the data from China. Reports of, these flights from Los Angeles, LAX to Shanghai, where the entire business section is largely populated by newborn babies. So it's a huge problem. And I think we have to dispel the idea that birth tourism or birthright citizenship, I should say, is just something, somebody comes across the border, they make a life here, they're here for 20 years, they have a couple of kids. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about very systematic, and we're talking about something China did in Hong Kong for a while. It reached the point around 2010 that half of all newborns in Hong Kong were Chinese nationals getting birthright citizenship in Hong Kong. The government had to stop it. The government in Hong Kong at that point had to stop it because they said, this is subversion. We can't allow this to go on. Something similar is playing out in the United States.
And you're saying that these other research firms are kind of confirming the Chinese numbers because both you and I know that we can't put a lot of stock in the Chinese numbers.
Yes, exactly. And what's interesting about that, you're right. You think, okay, the Chinese.
I keep trying.
If anything, I would believe the Chinese government would want to understate the numbers. So the fact that the Chinese government's saying 50,000 a year, the fact that these research.
All right, I give up, y'all.
100,000 a year. One research firm said that in just a single year, I think it was 2018, they said there were 150,000. Now, I don't know if those are, completely accurate, but those are the only numbers we have. And again, all of these sources would have reasons to sort of underestimate these numbers. And it would be fitting with China's methodology, which is very smart, very sophisticated at exploiting the weaknesses of countries that it regards as enemies. And that's certainly the United States would fit in that category.
I mean, you're making me think of how we've had to try to estimate the numbers of these forced organ harvesting victims in China, because over there it's a state secret in this case, right? The real numbers. So you have to say, well, how many hospitals have been built? How many beds are in those hospitals? There's some of these numbers do exist that are focusing exclusively on transplants, or how many wards, and eventually you kind of glean some sort of horrible estimate, right?
Yes.
Which is what we've done, but we should be doing better with our statistics here. It's kind of unbelievable what you're telling me, because it's not like it would be hard to gather that data if you chose to.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, exactly. And what it really comes down to is local governments who are issuing birth certificates, locations of birth. Nobody's collecting that data, and nobody is including the nationality of the parents. And yeah, I mean, which would seem like it would be an obvious thing to do.
Right.
So that would be beginning reform. I'm really hoping that when the Supreme Court looks at this issue of birthright citizenship, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not going to guess in legal details, but I do think that they would look at the fact that if you are going to have some form of birthright citizenship, the notion that somebody can literally drop off their pregnant wife, gives birth here, and as soon as the baby is able to get on a plane, you're flying back to China, that the 14th Amendment, which talks about under the legal jurisdiction thereof, would not apply.
Right.
If you snuck across the border, you've been here for 15 years, you gave birth, you've got a 5-year-old, I think people might be more understanding. But this mass industrial scale, it's a huge, huge industry. Not to even mention the issue of surrogacy. Which is an offshoot of that, where you have politically connected elites in China who are hiring women in the United States to carry their children. They call them carriers, and these women, they're American citizens. They're paid $50,000-$60,000. They get the sperm, or maybe sometimes the sperm and the egg from a couple in China. The child is born here. The child is born here is not only getting citizenship because of birthright citizenship, they're getting it because the birth mother is an American citizen. And we have no numbers on that. We have a couple of anecdotal stories. We have a case the Wall Street Journal mentioned of one single man, a billionaire in China, who, according to the Wall Street Journal, has more than 100 children born this way that are presumably going to be American citizens. So It's a massive, massive vulnerability, and we've got to wake up to it.
Tell me about UN USA.
Yeah, UN USA is one of these birth tourism.
Okay, let's pause. Let's pause. Man, first of all, shout out to our brother Dan in the chat. What up? Shout out to Mr. Freeze in the chat. So man, listen, there's a story right now where it's a Black girl who signed up to be a surrogate for one of these Chinese children. And she realized that, like she's working to like get the baby back or something like that. Like, so these are things that you can look up. Like this is actually happening. They have houses where where they hold where they house the women coming here, and the different levels they have. They got, if you got good money or if you don't got a little bit of money, you know what I'm saying? There's different levels of luxury when it comes to the houses or the facilities where you can come and have your baby. And so understand that this is what Trump just put in place, that this is fraud, because they ask you, are you coming here for any kind of medical procedures? Having a baby is definitely a medical procedure, right? And so when you're lying on your what do you call it? Your vacation visa to come to the US when you do this. So it's not just some, it's not a big deal. It's not a crime. It is definitely fraud. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand, that because the Democrats in particular do not prosecute these crimes, they forget that it is still a crime. You know what I mean? It is still a crime to do these things. And so now I am happy to see it's mind-boggling that the Supreme Court did not find in favor of what we wanted for birthright citizenship. However, it is not surprising, because President Devine definitely spoke on this before, that they would find other alternative ways to stop this birthright tourism and etc. And so I'm definitely excited to see that, because they definitely should be prosecuted, and the baby should not, the birth certificate of the baby should be revoked. And so they should not be allowed to be citizens after that. I also, before we move on completely to Mexico, I wanted to talk from Mexico. I wanted to talk about the fact that in the book, he doesn't really talk about it in the article, but in the book, he talks about how the Democrats removed background checks and parameters of new arrivals. Right before, there used to be a lot of background checks that you would have to go through, and there were people working for Homeland Security and immigration that ended up quitting because they're like, yo, what's going on? Y'all not checking nothing. Y'all just allowing anybody to come in, and they weren't with it. And so, that's something else that is happening. So when we talk about the cartel, no one is checking to see if these people have criminal records in the countries that they're coming from. That is not happening. It wasn't happening under the Democratic leadership that we had at one point in time. And so, I'm hoping that they just shut the doors down, so ain't nobody coming in, and now they checking the backgrounds of people that's already here. And so, I'm happy to see that. President Devine, you have any thoughts before we move on with the birthright citizenship and tourism?
Yeah, well, Trump just signed an executive order on that, so I haven't really looked through it to see all the details. But again, we knew it was coming, because Justice Kavanaugh and them left that back door open, and we also know that it's being misinterpreted for them to be able to do what they're doing. So it's only a matter of time before they plug up the judicial loopholes that are in it, for them to be able to take advantage of it. But to that point, and I'm old enough to remember where you had citizens in jeopardy of, and those that did lose their job based on not, doing what was going on at that time in the 2019 to the 2020s, but no one that was coming over during that same time from other countries were being checked, were being told they needed something to work or even come into the country. It was just a free fall, even if they came from the country from which the thing that we were fighting against came from. And in fact, like I said, just the same way with all that other gaslighting, when Trump accurately named it from which it came, that was supposed to be xenophobic. And so this is what we're talking about. For those that are picking up what I'm putting down, these are the tactics that they use against us while allowing free for all for these other communities to come in, and just the same way in which we talked about what you just mentioned, the absence of a background check when we get checked for every little thing we've ever done
in your whole life,
and they get to come here and leave it all behind. And we know, as Trump has said in the past as well, we was getting some bad hombres. You know what I'm saying? And we've seen that with some of the news stories that have come out. And unfortunately, a lot of those news stories have been this class of people attacking our people. And so, whether it be through drunk driving, and accidents that are preventable, or flat out violence and homicide, like we're getting the short end of the stick. We're on the we're getting the brunt of it, and so it's going to be up to us to protect our communities during this time and moving forward.
Yep, and we just had. Did you see the accident that happened? I think it was in the Bronx today.
No.
Crazy accident. It was a convertible. Ran a light or a stop sign or something like that. Ran into like a minivan. I mean, it was wild. Like the car, it was wild ass accident.
Wow.
And so, and this is what we're talking about. We'll see, but everybody spoke Spanish.
And I know you've seen recently as well the loss of life from bike accidents because they are on these motorized vehicles now. They're no longer just pedal bikes. People have been not murdered, but people have lost their life due to these accidents because you got people on them that don't know English, don't know lay of the land, don't know how things work over here, just doing any old thing. And to that same point, it being in the Bronx is not surprising, because I'm not gonna sit here and say that all of them are illegal aliens, but the Bronx has been on fire with Spanish speaking crime. Like, it's been crazy. It's been, whether and it's like pick your poison. It's like the Hunger Games up there with them.
It sure is.
And they're just picking any weapon. I mean, you take your pick. There's been gun
they
violence.
Breaking in houses.
There's been knife violence. You know what I'm saying? All that.
Machete violence.
Yeah, motorized vehicles and now actual vehicles. So it's going crazy up there with that demographic. And so, I foresee a lot more before it gets better, especially with Mom Dummy in there and doing whatever the heck he doing or not doing.
Yeah, and that chick that he's I forgot her name, but she's Dominican, but she's also a socialist. She just got voted as the Democratic nominee. I can't remember her name. Oh my gosh, I can't remember her name.
I know you're talking
but
about
I think even the Dominicans was mad at her because she said that they should welcome the Haitians. And the Dominicans was like, hey, you went too far, mommy.
and speaking of Haitians, okay, go ahead.
No, I was just going, so, but she's a socialist, so they're unable to see to see the forest for the trees, and so they don't even know that they're voting for their own extinction.
And speaking of Haitian, I was going to bring up I don't know what position he is. I know he's a police officer, nominated and put in place by Mamdani, and he just sat up there and said, "Yeah, I'm not going to be working with ICE." So he's going to try to, stand up to them and what they here doing. And he's like supposed. I don't know if he was. I can't remember what he was.
He's a sheriff.
Yeah,
He's
right.
Yeah. He's from East Flatbush. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's on some like, no, I'm not going to follow the law. So this is what is going on when you have these people in there. Because again, and I want to say this for the family, and this is where the Afro immigrants get it twisted up for themselves. Because what has happened and what we've seen is that over the past 60 years that we thought we were getting allies, we got a new crop of people that side with people based on immigration policy and immigration status long before they unite with us based on melanin content or being quote unquote racially black. So this is something that we've seen. And that's another reason why the delineation movement has been on 1,000, because we are finally understanding and realizing that if it is to be, it's up to me and it's up to you and it's up to us. We can no longer rely on these other groups that have dangled faux unity in our face for compliance and some of the BS that they've been pulling.
Absolutely. And we've been saying this for a while, like they don't understand the concept of buffer classes because they allow it to happen in the countries that they come from. They are so busy trying to cohabitate and capitulate and lay down with the very same people that were brought in to usurp them, that they don't understand that they were brought in to usurp them, right? And so this is the issue that we have, is and that is why we can no longer look at a camaraderie with people who don't see camaraderie with us, right? And so and another thing that they don't understand is by them not working with ICE, they're causing a situation, because here's the thing, the city level, this is what they don't understand because they're not citizens. And they're, don't have any history here in this country. They do not understand that the city and state level cannot override the federal level. That's point blank, period. There's no law that you could ever create here that is going to override the federal government, right? That's number one. Number two, you're creating an environment that is hostile now for ICE to come in and do their job. So now that is why you have the ending of TPS. That is why you have the ending of all of these things, because you guys don't want to work with them. And initially, they just really wanted to get rid of the criminal element. And why wouldn't you want to get rid of the criminal element here? If we could, why would we want to pay tax dollars, city dollars to hold foreign national criminals? Like, get them up out of here. But you didn't want to work with them on that. So now your cooks, your you know what I'm saying, your cab drivers, your whatever you doing, they coming to get you now because you did not want to work with them just to on the criminal level. So now everybody's at risk. Now put on this ankle monitor, and I'm gonna work on getting the criminals first. And then after I scoop up all the criminals, I'm coming right back around because I know where you at because you got on that ankle monitor. I'm gonna come right back around to that ankle monitor you got, cut that thing off, and send you back to wherever you got to go. And if your home country don't want you, or you don't want to go to your home country, we got a couple countries in Africa that's willing to take you for a couple of bucks. So it's y'all that are creating this situation and this atmosphere, and it's not going to happen. The country is we're just not going to allow that. Okay, so let's go back to the video. You got anything else before I hit play, President Devon? All right, let's hit play. Let's see if it'll let me do it again. I don't know.
And what they do is they have websites, they freely advertise in China. I mean, here's the mystery point. I think we know the answer in explaining the motive of why China's doing this. But
See, it's like when I do it one time, it won't
articles
do it
in the
again.
People's Daily, the flagship publication of the CCP, began running articles in 2011 about how you have a right to do this. They're telling Chinese elites, you have a right to go to the United States. The 14th Amendment is going to make sure that your child will be a U.S. citizen. And so the first question would be is why are they actually advertising this? And I think we know because
And I'll just qualify here. This means that this is the regime saying, we want you to know this,
Yes.
and we want you to do this. This is not casual.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Signaling, exactly right. Very, very well said. And the second part of that is there's a huge industry that does this, that says, pay us $70,000, $80,000. We will fly you to the United States. We'll help you get through customs and visa. We'll help you explain how to lie on your visa. Tell people you're coming as a tourist. Don't tell them you're coming to have a child.
Hide the belly.
Yeah, hide the belly, loose-fitting clothing. They'll put them in a nice condo or hotel, and primarily in California. They'll arrange all the medical procedures. They'll maintain everything that needs to be done, and then they'll ensure that they get back safely to China. That's a huge industry. You can go on the Chinese internet, which is highly, highly regulated. You've covered that, how much they censor. It's wide open. They don't stop any of that advertising from taking place. So You Win USA is one of dozens of companies that are doing this, and they brag on their websites who their clients are. And their clients are, according to them, military officers, intelligence officers, CCP officials, people from the Ministry of Propaganda. So these are not dissidents. These are pillars of the elite. And You Win USA is an example of one company that the Trump administration has tried very hard to clamp down on this. It's not illegal what they're doing, but what they charge them with, and I think rightfully so, is visa fraud. Because they're telling these pregnant women to lie on the visa saying, no, I'm not coming here for a medical procedure. I'm coming here as a tourist. And that is absolutely a felony.
Well, and there's also kind of this mix of options, because on one hand, you have this kind of, hotel dormitory almost situation. On the other hand, you have, very high-end services.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a menu that you can pick up. And so, yes, in some cases, you're in an apartment complex. It might be a 3-bedroom apartment, and there might be a pregnant woman or a woman with a newborn in all 3 of the bedrooms. And in some cases, almost an entire apartment block in Irvine, California might have that. On the other hand, if you can afford to pay more, they'll put you up in a luxury hotel. They'll have a massage person come. They'll make sure that you have the best quality food, et cetera. And so you have the child is going to be given U.S. citizenship by virtue of being born here. The parents will both be eligible for status as a permanent resident by virtue of their child. So the parents are incentivized because it will give them special immigration status to the United States as well.
I wanted to touch on one more thing in that chapter. And, this is just one chapter of your book is essentially, I forget what you call it, the Manchurian option or how.
Manchurian generation.
Manchurian generation,
Yes.
That's right. But you mentioned that the first baby born in 2025 in Saipan was one of these anchor babies.
Yes.
And it just reminded me, regular guest on the show, Cleo Pascal, talks about the vulnerabilities in this visa structure in Saipan, which of course is under, auspices of the US. Maybe if you could just speak a little bit to that and just that kind of bizarre reality on that island.
Yeah. Saipan, of course, is this, I guess, American outpost in the middle of the Pacific. And it has some, strategic value militarily to the United States. But because it is a U.S. territory, that means if your child is born in Saipan, according to this interpretation of the 14th Amendment, that is as good as if that child was born in California, Utah, New York, or Florida. So it creates a powerful incentive structure for Chinese nationals to go there because the visa requirements are more loosely interpreted. They want quote unquote tourists to come there because they don't get a huge number of them. And China sees that and has exploited it in a major way. So we need to look at that. We need to look at the larger issue of birth tourism. But we have to understand they are exploiting this on a massive scale It's industrial, and we are completely oblivious to it. And we're looking at, beginning in 2030, a wave of what, according to Chinese estimates, is going to be 1 million citizens. I'm going to put that in air quotes, but they're US citizens who have been raised in China. They were born here, shuttled back home, raised here. They're going to be voting in our elections. They're going to be donating to political campaigns. And let's remember the 2016 presidential election, it was settled by 72,000 votes. So 1 million votes is a lot of votes.
No, it's obviously wildly significant. And I mean,
All right, let's pause right there. That Saipan thing, that is super interesting. So they don't even have to come to the US, to the continental US. You can go to these other countries, and that's why they're cracking down on Puerto Rico the way they're cracking down on Puerto Rico, because that's another country where they're doing the same thing. You know, other people are going into Puerto Rico and having babies, and then, you know, finding their way. By the way, you know, just so you know, that is also how the shower posse would come back to the U.S. Because the shower posse, when they would get, you know, because that was around the time when U.S. born citizens, well, Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, if they got caught selling crack, they was getting football numbers, 30 years, 60 years for selling crack. However, members of the shower posse were getting 3, 4, 5, and then maybe getting deported. Not even maybe, and then getting deported. But when they got deported, the way they would come back is through Puerto Rico. Right. And so, you know, Puerto Rico has long, you know, been an avenue for illegal immigration. As well as Canada and Mexico, you know what I mean? So it's just the same thing, but with the plane. And so Saipan is just, we don't even think about these things. Like, who thinks about Saipan? Like, I think I learned about Saipan just from reading this book. And now they're using Saipan in a similar fashion as a way to, and so they're, if our immigration is as loose as it is here, we can only imagine what their national security is like in Saipan. And so this is a problem. This is why birthright citizenship is such a problem. I think that, you know, and this is an issue with immigrants in general. They are so self-centered and they do not care about national security. As long as they find a way in, their family finds a way in, their cousins find a way in, they don't care how secure the borders are, because they'll just, if things get hot, and we hear them say it all the time, if things get hot, they'll just pick up and go to a different country. If they ruin it here, they just pick up and go somewhere else, you know, like, and because that's what they did to begin with. So they could care less about our national security here. And that's something that we care about severely. This is why we fought in every war. This is why we have always defended this nation from all foes, whether foreign or domestic, because this is our country and this is our home and we love it here. And so that is why we make it a livable place instead of some place that's like a third world country. Because if other people had their reason, there would only be certain areas that have certain things. They would like it for the other areas to be like a third world country. But we are the ones that be like, nah, that can't happen. We're not going to allow that to happen. We're going to have equal this. We're going to have equal that. If you got plumbing, we going to have plumbing. If you got, you know what I'm saying? We going to have it too. And so, anything to add to that? Oh, I also wanted to one more thing. Chain migration, child, and this is another problem with the 14th Amendment. If it just ended at the child, that would also be one thing. The problem is that it doesn't end at the child. Through the child and the mother and the father and the auntie and the uncle and the cousins, everybody gets to chain migrate based on this one baby. And then when you look at, like, for instance, right now, they are changing the rules when it comes to housing in the country, right? When it comes to HUD. And they were using the baby, because if As long as you have one citizen that lives in a Section 8 or voucher housing, then you could have 5 or 6 people living there who are illegal. And so they're changing that now. Everybody in the house has to be a legal citizen. And if not, then everybody has to leave. And so this is something else that they have been using. So you come here as an illegal, you have a baby, you get pregnant, and child, let me tell you something. I personally know people, okay, who have done that. They came here illegally, overstayed their visa, right? Don't want to go back home. And what's the first thing they do? Become somebody's baby mama. And then when they become somebody's, I'm right now, I'm not telling you about what's in the book. I'm telling you about what I know living in East Flatbush. Then when you become somebody's baby mama, what's the best thing to do? If your baby daddy, right? Even if your baby daddy isn't a citizen, if your baby daddy is not taking care of you how you want to be taken care of, what you do now? Then you say he hit you. And then you go into the system. You go into the shelter system. You go to court and say that you were a victim of a crime. Domestic violence is a crime. And even though they talk about how, you got to be the victim of a crime of a citizen, it does not have to be that way, at least not here in the sanctuary city. As long as you are a victim of the crime, your baby daddy ain't got to be. He could be illegal too. He could be a green card holder. You just say, oh, my baby daddy hit me. And me and my baby need somewhere safe. They will find you housing. They will give you Medicaid. They will give you this. And you're illegal. But your baby is a citizen. And this is the problem. As we got people like Jordan Neely, who was an aged out American citizen foster child whose parents died or were killed. His mother was murdered. And nobody was helping him to find housing. Nobody was giving him a voucher. Nobody was giving him food stamps. Nobody was giving him help to navigate through the system, to be able to get free things, to get Medicaid, any of that. And so this is the issue that we have. Okay, President Divine, I said a lot. You got any thoughts on what I did in there?
Yeah, just a key point though, Jordan Neely.
Oh, you're breaking up. You're breaking up. Hold on. Okay, try it now.
Yeah, am I good now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay, yeah. No, just making a point of order. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that I'm not. Not only was Jordan Neely's mom murdered, he witnessed it.
Yeah.
So
yes, in front of him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's like that's an extra layer that needs to be said.
And hold on, can I add also? Nobody offered him any kind of counseling.
Right. Yep.
After seeing that.
That's right. And yes, a law solution. Yes, that's the U visa loophole and scam.
Mm-hmm.
What you just described. So this is the reason why when we're having these conversations and the delineation movement is in full swing and we're checking tethers, Pan-Africans, Democrat shills, and all underminers. This is why they look at us crazy when we call out the scamming, and they're looking at us like, well, why aren't you scamming too?
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody is scamming but us.
Mm-hmm.
But the flip side to that, and the answer to that question is that everybody else gets a blind eye turned toward them while we have to face the full extent of the law. And the reason being is because, and I use this example in that same interview we talked about with the Daily Wrap-Up crew. If any of y'all have ever had a friend, family member, or if it was you that worked at a fast food restaurant. Now, I know other stuff was going on at other stores that you worked at, but we're not going to encourage or promote boosting. But at them fast food restaurants, when your family or your friend came in and you was working at the counter, somebody was getting something free. In the words of Denzel Washington, I'm leaving here with something. I'm from around the way. So if I was going to get an extra nugget, my fries was going to be fresh. I was going to get, the price of a value meal for the price of a coffee. We was hooking up our friends, right? And I'm bringing it up to say this. This is what we're having. So when this guy is explaining what's happening, and we want to talk about or think about or analyze the fallout from this, what you have are these same illegal aliens or these pro-immigrant immigrants that get into positions of power, and then they're giving away free nuggets. And the nuggets are free housing, free health care. Let me allow you to get into this job, and then you bring all the other illegal people in that you know. And then lock the Black Americans out so they can't get any nuggets. This is what's happening underneath our nose. And the delineation movement couldn't have happened at a better time to a better people. Because now we're asking all the right questions and are highlighting our unique, as Sister Breuck pointed out, and as Marcus Garvey also pointed out, our unique constitutional relationship with this country that all these other groups do not have. And that is our big joker. And so, I want to point that out. But lastly, before I give it back to Sister Breuck, so she can, do it with that as she sees fit. This brings me back to something that, man, this really, man, I ain't going to use the term I used before, but this is what really gets to me when people disrespect Dr. King, and for the reasons that they do it.
Come on.
But that's a whole conversation for another day. But the point of that conversation I want to focus in on is this. Because most people use his conversation with, I believe, Harry Belafonte as a way to denigrate his work or to make it seem like or imply that he believed that he made a mistake and that the work he did was wrong.
I know where
That's
you're going.
not what it was. I want to make sure we understand that as a family tonight, so that you
Come
can
on.
disseminate that out. That's not what Dr. King was saying at all. And this immigration scenario and what's happening with the powers that be highlights that for us. And we know he knew because he talked about the European peasants that were getting boosted up by this system while they were telling us to boost ourselves up by the bootstraps. They were getting free programs that were teaching them how to till the land that they were going to get for free while they were telling us to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. And here's what I'm talking about. When Dr. King was having that conversation with Harry Belafonte, and he told him that I fear that I integrated my people into a burning house. Before I get to the culmination of what he meant by that, I want y'all to understand what he meant by the burning house. It wasn't, oh shit, I did the wrong thing, or all this work was in vain. No, what he was pointing out is that these white settlers and their descendants and these immigrant groups that get to identify as white, he found out that they are willing to burn the whole shit down than give us what we're owed. That's what he was talking about when he said he was integrating us into a burning building or a burning house. They were burning it because they would rather see the shit burn than give us what we're owed. And when Harry Belafonte looked Dr. King in the eye and was like, damn, like, this sounds so pessimistic. This is not the man that I've known all this time. What do you mean you integrated us into a burning building? He said, so he finally asked him, well, what should we do? And Dr.
Come
King
on.
said, become the firefighters.
Woo! I felt chills.
Because he knew that the only people in this country that will fight for this country in the way that it needs to be fought for is us. Because unlike all these other people that come in here, and like Sister Brooke said, are like, yeah, they ready to jump on the next thing smoking when there's time for smoke because they don't want the smoke. We don't got no other place to go. Because this is our place. And we can't allow them to burn it down because they will. Because they got some other place to go. They got some other place to pillage. They got some other place to, dare I say, parasite off of. And they are more than willing to do it. Because they have no real allegiance to this country. And that's what we're really up against when we're talking about delineation and we're talking about all these other groups. And then you factor in, my favorite target, which is Pan-Africanism, and how it moved to denaturalize us and have us look at this country as if we were foreigners, as if we were a class of people that were just wandering as lost Africans. No, we built this. This is our country. Like Dr. King also said, there has been too much, and I'm paraphrasing, too much of an investment has been made for us to leave. Dr. King said that. Frederick Douglass said that. Harriet Tubman said that.
Fannie Lou Hamer.
Fannie Lou Hamer said that. You understand what I'm saying?
Ida B. Wells.
Come on.
Callie House.
Real talk.
Man, listen, I'm getting chills as the names are just coming to my remember. Everybody has said this. A. Philip Randolph. Whitney Young.
Yes, Whitney Young. Shout out to Whitney Young. We got to understand who we are and what our relationship is with this country, with our country. And so as these other people line up to pillage it and try to take anything that ain't nailed down, it's up to us to put out the fires. And not only is it up to us to put out the fires, it's up to us to stand up and say no more. That might not be nailed down, but I wish a tether would. Try to take it. Go ahead. Try to take it. And we don't need nobody's permission. We don't need no white folks' permission. We don't need no permission from the government. We don't need no permission from nobody. You don't need nobody. Who permission you need to make sure you run your house like you run your house? That's what's going on right now. We are reminding people, allow me to reintroduce myself. This is ours, and we're going to run it and see it done right. Or you going to leave. That's it. In the words of another famous Martin, get to stepping. Get to stepping. If you don't like what's going on here, and I land on that.
Yo, just to add more bricks to what you was building on, you know what I'm saying? I was a hell of a builder, Mr. President. Was it Johnson or was it Carter where he realized, I can't remember who it was, but it was a white politician, and he realized, that that the poor white folks of the country would rather be poor than to be on the same level with black people.
LBJ,
President Divine, thank you. I thought it was Johnson. I thought so. That he realized that. And it is evident by this is why we're in the immigration situation that we're in today. because they would rather shoot themselves in the foot, cut their nose off to spite their face, however you want to say it, than to let us work unhindered, to have us, thrive the way we need to thrive. They was like, once they saw that period that President Devine talks about from the 1920s to the 1960s, where the black middle class was made, once they saw that, they said, oh, hell no. Open the doors. Let them in. Because we can't have that. We can't have them surpassing us. You can't have, is that a Negro with a piano? Y'all know what movie that's from. And the dude was like, can you even play piano? No. But how dare they have one and I don't? Okay, he couldn't even play it. So this is the situation that we're in right now. We see that they are willing and they are opening the doors, the floodgates. This man who is the child of immigrants, both of those people that we're listening to right now, both of them are the children of, I think the interviewer is an immigrant and the interviewee is a child of immigrants. They're sounding the alarms. And then this book is, and the Democrats are ignoring it because they would rather let this place burn than to save it. And so, we're not going to let that happen. And for those of you who feel that we don't have the power or we have to ask, what we do shapes the world. I don't know why y'all haven't figured that out yet. Our soft power shapes the world. When we see, they did little tests. Okay, the first test was, let's work on these Hispanics. Let's start sending ICE to get these Hispanics out. We ain't say nothing. We didn't march. We didn't stand next to. We ain't say nothing. They was like, oh, word. Black people ain't saying nothing about that? Okay, all right. Because whoever said something about it, it wasn't enough for them to stop. Okay? So they said, oh, word? Y'all ain't say nothing? Okay, let's end TPS for Haitians and Syrians. Oh, black people ain't say nothing? Oh, word? Let's end TPS for Ethiopia. Oh, word? And then here's the thing. Once that starts happening, then other countries start doing it. Now look at Ireland. Ireland is ready to kick people out. You understand what I'm saying? Germany's ready to kick people out. The UK is ready to kick. Everybody is gearing up to do what we're doing over here. We set the trend. Y'all want to keep talking about you don't own this, you don't own that? Oh, okay. Keep bumping your gums about what we don't own. We set the trends because if we say let it ride, that bitch flies. So y'all keep it up. Thank you. How you do this? I'm just now learning how to show things on the bottom, so I apologize. It was definitely comments I wish I could have put up there, but I didn't know how to do that. Y'all gotta work with me, okay? I'm new to this thing. Okay, all right. So I'm learning, okay? All right, so let's keep going. We got about another 10 minutes left in this, and then we gonna wrap it up.
Let's go back to what I said about the incentive structures. I mean, U.S. citizenship ain't a bad one to have.
Yeah.
Okay. Despite what some people will have you believe.
Right.
So, this is kind of set up for exploitation. Like everyone wants to have that opportunity for their kid. I mean, I'm just saying, like, with your best intentions, we're not trying to be subversive. You just want a kind of a better life for your kid. If you can, do it here on American soil, you could be thinking, hey, they'll be set for life, right?
Yes, absolutely, you would. And I understand the motivation there. The challenge with the birth tourism arrangement is the child is a U.S. citizen in name because they were born here, but they're not being raised here.
Right. This is the clause that the Supreme Court is going to be assessing.
Exactly
right.
Right. And there's not
you guys know this
easy
before
answers
that.
in the sense that, again, I understand somebody who's made a life for themselves here. They've lived here 25 years. They've worked hard. They had a child, 12 years ago. Should that child be a U.S. citizen? Maybe. But again, I don't see anybody that can make a reasonable case that a child that's born here and then put on a jet plane in business class to go back to China and has been raised there in this CCP bubble, how on earth we can count that person as U.S. citizen that has the ability to vote or get a government job or whatever?
Well, obviously a massive national security implication. I don't even want to, it should be obvious on its face.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Pause. I want to talk about some things that have already happened, right? So when they talking about these children that can be raised in the People's Republic of China and then brought back here when they're adults and they can vote and they can apply for jobs in certain areas. Do y'all remember when we had trains coming off the tracks, boats crashing into whatchamacallit? What you think that was? You think those was accidents? I don't think they were accidents. I think those, because look up Chinese spies. Look it up. And see the list and where they worked. Some of these people worked in NASA. Some of these people worked in dams. Some of these people worked in electric companies. Some of these people worked in the FAA. Okay? Some of these people worked with submarines. Some people worked at the ports. This is the diabolicalness of this. Having people that could come back and hold these type of titles, offices, and positions and have no loyalty or no request for U.S. security, for national security. The other day, I was talking to President Devine about this. Recently they had this actually somebody hacked, because this wasn't even what I was going to talk about, but I was in the middle about to say something else and then this popped into my head. They hacked the water system not too long ago. Look that up. They didn't talk about it in the mainstream news, but somebody hacked the water, and I believe it was California, like 3 or 4 states. It was a big problem. National security. How do you think these things are happening? Because you keep bringing people over here who don't care nothing about here. But then you want to sit here and squash the people who actually care about the country. But that's how they do. But what I was the other part I was going to say is that the president, and regardless of who the president is, the president, right? So we're not going to talk about who he is as a person, whatever, right? But the president of the United States, they faked him boarding this plane, and then they took him off the plane through the back and put him on a truck, and then got him out the country or wherever he was at some other different way. And I saw people like this was like an expose that they were doing, like supposedly like the president, forgetting who he is, left all the people on the plane because it was some threat to his life. So he left all the people on the plane to die while he got out of Dodge. Excuse me, that's how it's supposed to work. Anybody who has a position on Air Force One or anything like that, that is they are supposed that is an unfortunate situation that could happen that you sign up for. They tell you ahead of time. It is Secret Service's job to look out for the president no matter what, period. Everybody else is supposed to crash and burn, but then you're supposed to get the president up out of there, including your own self. That is the job of the Secret Service. And it seems like, and this is the problem when you got a bunch of people here who do not understand how the country works. I don't care who the president could be the snowman. You are supposed to protect him at all costs. And everybody else is inconsequential. That's why I don't want to be Secret Service. I don't want to work on Air Force One. I don't want to do anything because I'm not putting my life on the line for the president. But if you do work in those jobs, that's what you are signing up for. There's no cowardice on the part of the president. It's actually Secret Service for the first time in a long time actually doing their goddamn jobs. Because they've been looking a hot mess a while for a few presidencies. Since Obama, they've been messing up. Getting drunk in Mexico. Y'all remember that? They got drunk in Mexico and was messing with a bunch of prostitutes. Y'all remember that? This is during Obama's administration. Okay? And they got caught. So, Secret Service has not had, the best reputation lately. So, I'm glad to see they actually did something right for a change. And thank you so much for that super chat. And so let's continue. Oh, President Divine, did you have anything you want to add? Okay. He said, I'm not talking about prostitutes and getting drunk in Mexico. Okay, all right. I'll leave that to me.
What was the most shocking thing you figured out that you didn't know? I mean, you've been looking at corruption for decades, uncovering all sorts of things. What was the most shocking?
Certainly the birth tourism is right up there. I think the most shocking is because it is so brazen and it's so visual and it's so visible, is the training of Chinese pilots in the United States. And this is something that, you go back to 9/11. I'm old enough to remember 9/11 vividly. And we woke up to the fact after, the dust settled and we buried the dead, that people from terrorist countries had come here and gone to flight schools. And remember, famously, they didn't want to learn how to land. They only wanted to learn how to fly. So they exploited our flight schools and we shut that down. We said, we're going to do screening. If you're from certain regions of the world, where there might be a jihadist influence, you can't go to flight schools. And then to wake up to the fact that we are training thousands of pilots in the United States from China, many of whom are going to be flying for the PLA. That to me was shocking because when you go on the website of these flight schools, you see 95% of the students there are Chinese nationals. So that one probably for its brazen and in my mind, obvious nature.
And then, explain how this works, because this is not the military doing
correct.
The training, obviously, right? Well, maybe not obviously, but hopefully obviously.
Right.
But so how does it work? How is it that private aviation schools are training military pilots?
So what happens is these training schools in the United States, they obviously want students, and the tuition's expensive. It's $90,000 for basically a year of training. So the Chinese government has gone to these flight schools, and China has a pilot problem because they need, according to their estimates, about 5,000 pilots a year, military and civilian. But they can only train about 1,250 because the military restricts airspace usage in China. So they have to get them trained somewhere, and they get them trained in the United States. And so what happens is the Chinese government pays the tuition. It's $90,000 a year, cash in advance. These schools get it. And the pilots come and train here. It's basic flight training. When they go back to China, the cream of the crop go to the PLA for more advanced training. So what becoming a pilot's a lot like becoming an athlete. You crawl, then you learn to walk, and then you learn to run. Well, we're teaching them to walk. We're giving them the basic flight training, and we should not underestimate that. I mean, this is a year-long process. You're learning the basics of flight training. They wouldn't be learning this elsewhere. And the best of the pilots that are trained here are going to be training on advanced military aircraft in China, and our pilots will be facing those pilots. So to me, that was shocking because of its brazen nature. And it just seems to me kind of a slam dunk that we should say, we're not going to do this. We're not going to train Chinese pilots to do this.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you've certainly revealed a considerable amount over the years of this kind of the.
Hold on. Somebody put this in the chat. Mean Oh, child. Come on now. Me mean?
Me mine.
Me mine? Okay. Also, China sent women to marry men too, and many worked for universities. The research of the schools were doing was being stolen. Absolutely. Not only that, but they were also, and this was being talked about during the Biden administration, right? The fact, because I did a post about this. I mean, like almost 2-3 years ago at this point, where they were giving money to a lot of universities to be able to steal from them. So this is and national security was talking about. They had talked about this on the Hill. They had testified like this is a problem. We have to look into the fact that they are funneling money into our educational institutions. So we also saw that recently that a lot of people are going to jail for marriage fraud with the People's Republic of China. We saw that the marriage fraud was going crazy with the Chinese. And how they're paying people to marry them, and if it don't work out with this one, then you get a divorce and you marry another Chinese person. And they were doing this with Samoans, which is also a U.S. territory. So another way to backdoor into it, they were using Samoans, and so I just find that interesting. So if they're using Samoans, that they doing it in what was the name of that country? Saipan. Puerto Rico. If they doing it in Samoa, yeah, that's how the Samoans say it. In Samoa, let's give them, they doing it in other places. So, I just want to put that in there as well. And then we saw not too long ago where it was a Chinese national got caught trying to bring in bacteria. Different forms of bacteria and stuff like that, hidden in underwear, I believe it was. It was just a crazy ass story. Like, and like I mean, come on. And honey, we all know where the vid came from. And if y'all don't remember, now let me see if I can say how I can say this. Do y'all remember when the vid first came out and there were people that looked like that appeared to be from the People's Republic, and they were coming over here and going to Walmart and licking the laptops? Oh, y'all didn't see those videos? Sneezing on the laptops? That's before people got caught. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Licking buttons on the elevators. Look that up if they still have it on the internet. But that definitely was, I remember specifically, it was a woman in Walmart spitting on the laptops. Biological warfare. Where Donnie B? How do I find that? Hold on. Let me see if I go put it up there. There we go. Boom. Biological warfare. We are at war. I saw a post not too long ago where somebody was saying, because understand, America really, I'm not even saying America. I'm going to say white people, right? White supremacy, right? But the English, in particular, England, they really did a number on China with the what you call it? You smoke it? It's from China.
Opium.
Opium. There you go, with the opium wars and all that kind of stuff. They really flooded them with opium, because that trick that they did with us, that's really a rinse and repeat trick, you know what I mean, that they do in other places as well. And they did that to the Chinese with their own opium, you know what I mean, and got them hooked on opium, and then because they wanted their tea. They're so wild. They wanted their tea, and they got them hooked on opium because the Chinese were having a leg up with the price of tea. which is probably why, we say that thing. It doesn't matter that how does that affect the price of tea in China. But anyway, as a result of, the Chinese having a lock on the tea industry, so then they've decided so they could manipulate the prices how they wanted them to be. They flooded them with opium. So the Chinese, that's something that they haven't forgotten. And so, in this post, they were saying, oh, that's why they're flooding us with TikTok. Oh, no. Because something else that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, if you're not paying attention, for a while in New York, I don't know about other states, but the Hennessy was being spiked with the F word, with the null, the Fenty beauty products, the Hennessy was being spiked, and so it was people who, are casual drinkers or whatever, just coming up, just people finding them stone cold in their house. And they're like trying to figure out what happened. They were just sipping on a little something. That's it. Nothing crazy. Just sipping on a little something. They don't do hard drugs or drugs at all. They don't do anything. And they was coming up. And you know who owns the majority of the liquor stores in New York? Who you think owns the majority of the liquor stores in New York? I know. Because I specifically do not patronize them, because that is a community that I have taken my money away from since 2018. So it was painfully aware. I was painfully aware of who was behind the counter when I went to go get a little sip of something. And that's part of the reason why I stopped sipping on things. Because I was like, I don't feel like giving these people my money, and I don't know one that isn't. So I wasn't a big drinker to begin with, but now I don't drink at all, because they own the liquor stores here, at least in Brooklyn and Queens. So again, we're allowing these people to come over and flood our communities. They have a grudge against this country. They have a grudge against white supremacy. They have a grudge, and they are able to do all of these things. Flood us with the vid, flood us with Fenty null. Okay, flood us with these things. Then you put into play working in the airports, working in this, working in the mail. Do y'all remember a time when things was when all kinds of biological warfare was being mailed out? Do y'all remember that? Now, I'm not blaming the People's Republic of China for that at that time, but we are seeing that it is possible, and it has happened. And who are y'all going to the post office? I got to mail out y'all packages when y'all order my beauty products. And thank you so much for y'all orders. I'm sorry they are always late. But y'all see what I be doing. That's why and I actually make every single one of those products by hand. I fill the bottles, I put the labels, I do all of that by hand. So that's why your products be late. But I always throw something in extra because I know I'm late. But I'll be in there because I got to mail out y'all stuff. It's a lot of other people in there. It's a lot of other people from other countries in the post office. So it's just when you think about all of these things, it's disturbing, and this is why we have to do what we can do right now, and it's more it's more the entire country. Somebody said Amtrak, yeah. Well, we already seen the trains hopping off the track. Where was that? Ohio, I believe it was, when the train hopped off the track, and it ain't smelled the same, and the train was carrying chemical something that was making people in the area sick once the train crashed. Look, the news is wild, and we need to get a handle on this situation, and they're not telling us all of the ways that we are at risk. All right, President Divine, I know I went off. I know you feel about my conspiracy theories, but all that stuff I talked about, you can look up.
I actually did look it up though while you was talking, and Most of it is true, so I'll give you that.
Well, what wasn't true? Not all of it is true. I might be off.
Nobody was licking nothing inside the Walmart.
No, that's a fact.
That's not a fact.
I saw the video. No, and this is before AI.
Then okay, then
that is the truth.
And I will let you produce that licking video. But I did look up that there was an altercation in the Walmart because she was going around the Walmart touching on everything, specifically the laptops in the computer department. And in a separate incident during that time in China, there was somebody like going around like, now that person was the one that was doing things with her mouth to people's like doorknobs and all type of wild stuff in China though. But the one in Walmart, she didn't lick nothing, but she was touching everything during that time. I mean, somebody confronted her like, "Hey, what's going on? What you doing?" And it caused an altercation, and that's what took the video to social media at that time, because it was just like real funny style, like, "What you doing?" So I'm not saying that you're wrong on that. I definitely, it definitely was looking real suspicious, and now that we know all the stuff that we know now in hindsight, something was not going on. But that one in China was wild, and that was definitely somebody doing some stuff, and that was in the actual city, that started it off. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Because like I said, I was paying attention to a lot of things. So I'm just saying, y'all can look it all up.
I'm not saying the video that you saw don't exist. I'm just saying the one that I looked up and saw.
No, it could be that because like I said, I was watching a lot of things, so I might have put the two together.
Yeah,
put the two videos together because I probably seen them both. So it's a possibility. But I know she was in there doing some biological warfare on them laptops, and everybody was looking at her like, "What the hell?"
They did, and they confronted her.
And I know I seen a video of somebody licking on the doorknobs and the elevator buttons and whatnot. I was like, "What the hell? Why would you even lick that? That's nasty."
And that did happen too. So so yeah.
So
you wasn't that far.
Right. Okay. And so, and then like I said, even with the people working in these things and them donating to the colleges, all of that is true. You can look all of that up.
That I did
all of that up.
That I already knew.
All of that up. All right. Ariana Grande licked donuts. I hope they were her donuts. She don't eat donuts. She don't look like she eat at all. Anyway, y'all go and follow President Divine on his channel. We trying to push him to actually start putting out videos. Thank you so much. I would really appreciate it. Let me see if I can find the thing where I put, Lord, it's so far. Here we go. So far back. Make sure y'all subscribe to President Divine. All right, let's press play.
The Chinese Communist Party taking advantage of the openness of U.S. society, and in some cases the support of possibly aligned for nefarious reasons, possibly just out of convenience, political actors.
Yeah.
And it just sort of, we don't even know like where this ends. I mean, it was stunning to me, to this revelation as well. But how many other scenarios like this we just didn't think to look, right, or exist right now?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I spent 2 years researching this book with my research team. We didn't find everything. No way we found everything. And that's what worries you. The things that we found worry me because of the vulnerability, but at least now they're visible and in the open. And if we can have leadership in our country take the proper steps to deal with it, that's great. But you think about the things that are going on that we're not aware of. I mean, the research you're doing right now on the horrific situation with, the organs and the body parts in China. I think you probably have a more complete picture than anybody else does. But there are things that still go on in the dark recesses
100%.
that you don't even know about. And so you struggle with that, as you probably have the same thing.
I'll give you an example. I mean, so I've been working on exposing this forced organ harvesting, murder for organs industry in Communist China for 20 years, on and off, A big part of the problem was that it's just so extreme, industrial scale. You use that term. They're
Yeah.
good at that over in China, unfortunately. Murder of people for organs. People just at some point would clue out and not want to know. And I understand. And I was sympathetic because I was the same way at the beginning.
Yeah.
I got a report probably 6 months ago about farming of children for this. Okay. And the moment I saw it, I mean, those same feelings, I've been desensitized to forced organ harvesting. I've been working on it for so long, but it just took me back to me not wanting to know. It took me days to read the report in the first place, but I kind of knew already because of the twisted incentive structures that exist that, I mean, it's almost certainly happening. And, now that we're digging in to try to understand what's the scale, how much of this is happening, using surrogacy, it's just kind of an obvious system that could be used for organ transplants. Is horrific to contemplate, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, there's sort of, for people that are just learning about that story or the stories I'm working on, there's this sort of cognitive disconnect because it seems so divorced from what they believe is. Surely somebody's taking care of that. Surely if this harvesting is taking place, the major media outlets would be covering it. No, it's not. So it takes a while for the imagination of the general public to really catch up with the facts and what the reality are.
And we just don't want to know. And I mean, this is what I mean. The moment I conceived of it from this report, I knew it was almost certainly happening. And now it's just a matter of figuring out how and the details and so forth. But until I conceived it, just like you weren't expecting to find that there's all these flight schools training pilots. Because why? Because it's so brazen. Because it's so, By the way, thank you for endorsing the book. It's helping.
I'm very, very, very glad to do so.
Yeah.
It's fantastic journalism. It really is. And I don't say that to a lot of people. People will ask me a lot of times, and I'm not familiar with them. And a lot of times people use just almost exclusively anonymous sources. You don't do that. So it's a great piece of work. And I'm very excited that you took it on. And I know it had to have been.
All right. So they just kind of, talk about each other's books and stuff at that point. It's over now. But I did want to, somebody put in the chat, let me see where it says, Steel Wing said Russia was ahead of China with this invasion. I don't see Russia doing the things that China is doing. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if I could put them on the same level as China. I don't know if their animosity is not as high. I don't know if they're being stopped. I don't know that, but I don't see them. Russia has not pulled off a vid here in this country. Russia has not pulled off, an invasion of Fenty. No. Russia has not, now have they allowed the Russian mob to do certain things and own property and things like that? Of course. But that is not only the Russian mob. They allow the Chinese, and that's another thing. The white supremacists in this country are so bent and bound on making sure that we are usurped in this country that they allow all of these people to come with their organized crime. The Russian mob has organized crime. The Chinese mafia has organized crime. The Italian mafia. Look at the did y'all see the little Italian boy in Penn State? Oh, he's an Italian young man. Oh, he got caught with one of the biggest D-Rug rings ever. And you should see what he looks like. He looks like Poindexter. Right? I mean, and they no, this was not no small operation. This was a big operation. As an Italian young man. So, you know what I'm saying? They allow, so the Italians ain't sleep when it comes to the organized crime, because now they have moved into, and see, now before, when the Italians first started, bringing drugs in, they was bringing it into our communities. And now it was that the upper echelon of Penn State University he goes to Penn State, or he was a whatchamacallit Penn State, and he was selling to kids at Penn State, but he was doing it through his fraternity, which is off campus. So that was the way Penn State was being able to wash their hands of the situation, because his actual residence was off campus, but he was selling to people on campus. The fraternity is a fraternity of the campus, and he was a member of fraternity. So they allow these people to come here with their organized crime, right? He was a Revenge of the Nerds. Where he did kind of look like Revenge of the Nerds with a suit on. He looked like Pee Wee Herman. Anyway, so he definitely looked like Pee Wee Herman to me. And but they allow these people to come with their organized crime just to spite us, and it's very interesting. So like I said, I don't really see Russia doing as much as China is doing. And listen, and then they're allowed to like I said, we are with both countries, we're supposed to be at like some sort of like soft WAR with, and they allow them to come here and buy property. How you allowing people from the foreign nationals to come here and buy property, and you're supposed to be at a cold war with them? That makes sense? It just doesn't make sense to me. President Divine, you have anything else?
No, just about to say, why you say war like to say like you?
I don't know. I be on so many platforms. You can't say this over here. You can't say this over there. You can't do this over here. I be forgetting where I'm at.
That happens to me too, so I can't front. So yeah. No, I would just say, yeah, something is definitely afoot, right? Like, because when something don't make sense, that means there's an ulterior motive, and so it's like it doesn't make any sense for the things that you're doing based on the facts of the matter, right? Based on the facts of the case, it don't make sense. And so it's like, yeah, you would not allow that to happen. You would not allow them to come in and run roughshod. Like, so something else is going on. And for all his faults, right? And for all things that people can't stand, this is what I talk about when this is what I'm talking about when I say we have to be politically nimble. And shout out to Brother Dan, Mr. Foundational, in his report. I was listening to one of his back and forths with the old fearmongerer. So I think that's one either you posted today or yesterday, Brother Dan. And
the gangster one.
Yeah. And
I remember that live.
And it was, I bring that up because we have to not even learn, like we got to just be prepared to be who we are, who we need to be, and be politically nimble, and all the shaming tactics and fear mongering be damned, right? Like I can sit here and say, thankfully Trump won in 2024, because I don't know what it would look like from this standpoint had Kamala Harris won, right? This guy, it would be too much material for him to write a book on if she had won. And I think about all that he exposed through the USAID scam, and all those groups that were telling us they were pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, and they were just out here working hard. And we found out that they were undergirded by our tax dollars, and there was monies set aside for them based on their immigration status that we can't touch. And so for Trump to have won and be put in a position to challenge birthright citizenship and thus birthright tourism, it'll be a free for all if Kamala Harris was in office and this was going on, which it is going on. And I say that to say this entire conversation, speaking about being politically nimble, and doing things that are taboo and just saying, you know what, rolling the dice and saying, F it, we got to do what we got to do. It brings to mind, my fellow founding member of the U.S. Freedom Project, Reverend Coachman, and my sister Nat Wilcox. But Reverend Coachman putting her name on the line when it was still taboo, because
that's why we call her the gangster Reverend Coachman.
Yes, long before the illegal alien crisis, aka the migrant crisis, that New York put itself in. This New York City Council voted to allow non-citizens to vote in our local elections as long as they had been in the country, in our city, for a matter of months. So essentially a long vacation. And had the U.S. Freedmen Project not worked with the Republicans in New York to get that city council law rescinded, reversed, based on the New York State Constitution, the Democrats in New York were going to flaunt and wipe their behinds, figuratively, with the Constitution to allow non-citizens the right to vote. And that means all of those people that came into New York during that migrant crisis would have been voting members of New York City. What would the city look like if all of those people that were in the city were able to vote and steer the direction of this city? It's mayhem, right? And this delineation movement have exposed that if it's not us championing our causes as a people, no one else will do it.
Yep.
And so we have seen that all of these politicians, and damn near all of them are immigrants, because there's only 3 groups in this country that ain't immigrants. So they are all pro-immigrant, pro-immigration, whether illegal or legal. And so we have to become unapologetic with getting our people, our politicians in these races into office, and then be unapologetic to champion our causes, because no one else will. And that brings me to the sister, and I say that loosely, that just won in Florida. I think her name is Angie Nixon. And I want us to be very, very aware and very, very careful of these Democrat socialists. They are like the Tea Party of the Republicans. They got their own little faction.
Very good point.
Power, and they're pushing their agenda. And I want us to be clear. That agenda is not a foundational Black American agenda. That agenda does not serve foundational Black Americans, no matter how much goodies and giveaways they're talking about giving to everybody. It is going to be a free-for-all for immigrants, specifically the illegal kind, because they believe as a group in open borders. So they're trying to just open up the floodgates and then give everybody something for free on somebody else's dime, because there's no such thing as a free lunch. Somebody going to have to pay. And so we have to understand that, when I'm looking at it, I'm listening to them talk, obviously, there is a political ideology of Pan-Africanism, but that's what I'm looking at these Democrat socialists as. It's political Pan-Africanism. They are flattening everything. And I heard the gentleman, I think he is an Egyptian, and I think he won in Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. And when they talked about his lack thereof of policies for foundational Black Americans, they said Black, but we know Black is foundational Black Americans. He said, well, I am Egyptian, so that means I'm African. And he did not get the memo that the delineation movement is in full swing, and no longer does African mean black. We're black, foundation black American. And you damn sure can't talk to me about being Egyptian and being African when prior to 2024, Egyptians were white in the United States of America. You just now got your nation of Middle Eastern North African being North African. No, y'all was white prior to 2024. So for the for damn near all of your adult life, yes, you were Egyptian, yes, you were African, but when you got here, you was white and you acted as such. So let's stop playing these games. We need policies. If you ain't got no policies, then you're not getting our vote, and we got to stand on that while at the same time doing everything we can to get our own politicians in these races, because nobody else is going to take up our cause for us. That's what we're fighting against. We're fighting against all these other politicians that are pro-immigration, illegal and legal. And as we have found out in this live, just about 2.5 hours ago, immigration, both legal and illegal, do not serve the native populations of any country. And we are the native population of the United States of America. And immigration is a net negative for foundational Black Americans, no matter which country you come from, or no matter how much melanin you have in your skin.
Absolutely. I just, I cannot talk about democratic socialists without bringing up Killer Mike. Killer Mike, I still got a bone to pick with you. You came to New York. You advocated. You took pictures and whatchamacallit with Mondami. And then you left us to deal with the fallout. Why aren't you here talking to your boy? Why you sit there and you let your democratic socialist buddy sit there and say that immigrants built New York? Imagine if what's his name? Bernie Sanders went to Atlanta and told them in Atlanta that immigrants built Atlanta. Imagine what he would do and what he would say. But you came here to my city and you let that fly? You gave him hip-hop credibility? Where are you, Killer Mike? Because you made it quite clear what side you was on, even though you're not even a New Yorker. How much time you spent here, Killer Mike? Why you keep getting on your knees for these democratic socialists? First it was Bernie Sanders, now it was Mondami. Why? What is it that they got over your head? Why you keep allowing them to use you the way you letting them use you? And see, and this right here, you see what I'm doing right now? I'm holding our own accountable. Like I always say, foreign or domestic, I don't care. Everybody, like President Devon said, the smoke is rated E for everyone. And I'm going to take a second to talk to Killer Mike because he is a foundational Black American. A foundational Black American who did not grab his cojones and tell Mondami what's up. What did you do in that back room? Because you said you wanted to talk politics with him and you went into a private room with him. What did you do in that room with him? Because you sure didn't advocate for us. Because President Devine has been sending letters to that administration requesting a meeting. And what you gave us, the David Dinkins building? So what did you talk about in that back room? What did you do in that back room? what was done to you in that back room. I got questions, Killer Mike, because the killer in you is purring for the Democratic Socialists. That's all I see you doing as they stroke your belly. You're not standing up for us. And if you're not going to stand up for us, then shut your fucking mouth and stop talking for us. Stop acting like you give a shit about us. Oh, it's the end of the show now. I'm about to let loose. Stop acting like you care. Because you ain't doing nothing. You sitting there allowing these people to do whatever the hell they want to do and then use you for photo ops. I'm looking at you crazy, Killer Mike. You about to be Kitten Mike. We're going to have to change your name. Subservient Mike. I'm done on my rant. But you pissing me off. And I know to you, I probably ain't nobody, but I actually live here. You don't. And that is the fucking problem. All right, we done. We at the end of the program. I done lost my but look, he pisses me off. Cause you starting out he starting these podcasts now where you sitting there trying to act like you act like what? Anyway, I really thought that this is a very, very important book. You guys should. I put the link to the Amazon to the book on Amazon for you to pick up. This is a really, really important read. It's also on Audible. This is an important read for every American, not just Black America, but every American should read this book and see what the plan is, what the plot is, what they're doing, what they not telling us. Because like he said, he found a lot, but he didn't even find it all. And if you don't read this book, you don't even know some of the things that's going on. This is a very, very, and if you could get it used for about 10 or 11 bucks. Hardcover. I like hardcover books. I feel like they last longer. Okay? Go on Amazon, get the book. Read that book. I thought it was very important, and I thought that this interview did a great job of just touching on each of the whatchamacallits in the book, the chapters in the book. So that is it. Again, I want to thank you all for subscribing to my new channel. I cannot believe I'm almost at 6,000 subscribers. I can't believe it. It blows my mind. I can't believe that we got about 100 and something people in the chat right now. Almost 200 people we've had in the chat. I can't believe it. I can't believe the views I be getting. I can't believe it. I can't believe the likes I be getting. I can't believe the comments that I be getting. Y'all are so kind and so sweet and just so encouraging to me. And I'm overwhelmed and humbled by your support. And I thank you all. I love you very, very much. You are the reason why we do what we do. We do it for you. We do it for your children. And we can't stop. And as Professor Cabo says, it ain't over till we win. Right? And we will be the victors. And just be a member, subscribe, be a member, join my membership, because this one we did because you didn't really need to see it, but there are going to be documentaries and things that I would like you to actually see what they're putting on the screen. So become a member so that we could do copyrighted material like this. And you can actually see it, and that's what the membership is for. So become a member so we could have these documentary watch parties together where we could sit, watch, and do a little bit of what we did here today. So you get a kind of a free preview of what it happened without actually seeing it, because like I said, it was just them sitting, you know, you saw little bits and pieces of it. So join my membership so that we can have these documentary watch parties together. And I love you all so much for watching. Make sure you like, and for those that are on the playback crew, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and make sure that you leave a comment even after you finish watching the video. I hear people say that it helps them in the algorithm, so I need help in the algorithm too. Okay, help me out. All right. And yes, President Divine, please subscribe to his channel. His channel is called President Divine. So subscribe to his channel as well. Thank you so much, Dan. That's Dan. That is the foundational report. Yeah, we're gonna try to get him to be next. And that is it. I gotta go because I gotta go to work, y'all. After this, now I gotta work. I don't get up till 8 a.m. So subscribe to my channel, so you know what I'm saying, I can stop this. I love you all. You are my heart and my soul. And and President Divine, end us with the Freedmen slogan you be doing. I love it.
Oh yeah. Definitely like, subscribe, all that other good stuff, all that YouTube stuff. I don't know nothing about yet, but I will. But I just want to let everybody know that we were freedmen then, we're freedmen still, and there's nothing like a freedman's will. Y'all be good till next time.
Good night. Okay, I clicked end the stream.